Welcome to the show, everyone. It's a peaceful atmosphere right now. I don't know if you can hear the song in the background. It's peaceful. It's something a little different. And I think today's episode will be a little bit different. Why? Well, because I have basically an interviewing expert, Adam Townsend. Welcome to the show.
How are you? Should I turn down my music now, or should everybody stay
I
like
mean,
that?
it's kind of nice, but maybe just for a little bit longer, it's
So
kind of like
this is the Hanuman
introduction.
Chalisa. This is the Hanuman Chalisa, and it's a 500-year-old poem, um, and it's said many times. So I'm not going to walk you through it because I'm going to spend 2 hours because it's like a big thing. In the meantime, everybody likes the music, right? It's beautiful. It's calm.
It is rather peaceful. It is calming. I like that.
It's
That's
tranquil.
good.
It keeps you like that. I don't listen to
Yeah.
rap music. I don't listen to rap
Okay.
music. When I'm at the gym, and I'm at the gym a lot, I
Mhm.
only listen to audiobooks.
Ah, okay.
That's
Furthering your mind while you're furthering your body.
Yeah.
Good combo right there. That's a good combo. Right on. Well, that's peaceful. I mean, I like that. So, wow, Adam. I mean, welcome to the show. It really is a pleasure to have you. I've been watching you on Twitter. You've been doing Periscope. You've been rocking that Periscope out,
Yeah.
interviewing some big players in the internet realm, essentially. Right. I mean, it's a pretty cool position you've got.
I'm having fun. I just do it as a hobby. I started doing it because I wanted to do an investor series, right? I'll turn down my music now. But
Okay.
I started doing it because I wanted to do an investor series because around March, I was buying up the market, right? The market was around 18,000. People who had never experienced bear markets before were screaming that that's the end. The same thing you've heard for 20 years. CNN will never say buy; they'll always say sell because they're trying to shake shareholders out. They're trying to shake the retail, cause a little bit of panic, buy cheap stock. So around March, I was increasing my position, which is publicly disclosed, in Boeing, right? And I
Okay.
said it was like 120, and I'm like, I've got to start doing an investor series because I don't care who's the president. I want to make money, right? And
Right.
whether it's Biden or Trump, I still have bills to pay, and
True.
we all have an obligation to the future, right? You can and this is what I advised everybody. I'm very active in the venture capital. People only have so much of an emotional reserve, right? And
True.
it's very quickly depleted, and it's very difficult to replenish. So if I'm going to exhaust some part of that, am I going to do it with a little sign, or am I going to do it by trying to improve the life of my family? And that has a residual effect of I can give to philanthropies, and Nancy and I give a lot to philanthropies.
Wow. So what would you say to someone who has never is daunted by just the simple idea of investing? Just
You
some
have to invest. You have no choice.
but where
Every
do you
single
start?
penny you
Where
have.
do you even go? Where does one even
Okay.
begin to invest?
So the world is being cartelized. Let's look at what happened under under Obama, but it really became pronounced right under the Trump administration. When Trump became president, Amazon was around $400 to $600 a share,
Okay.
and Amazon and the other companies were able to use kind of Trump washing, right? They were able to launder themselves through Trump and essentially create very powerful cartels.
Hmm.
And we're seeing the emergence of these megacorps, right? So the world, you're young, you're what? You're 31, right? How old are you?
37 in a week.
You look good, man.
Thank
Look
you.
good. Yeah, I'm 54. I'm 54.
You
So
look good too. 54. Nice.
thanks. But you're the male model, right?
I was. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I guess yes, I did do that for quite some time.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when I first came into Wall Street, it was a few weeks before the crash, right?
Okay.
And at that time, um, after the market crashed, everybody became very bearish, and there was just a lot of sentiment for several years. And I was very fortunate that I came into the market at that time. And so I've been bullish on America nonstop ever since.
I like that.
Nonstop. But when I came onto Wall Street, you were seeing what were called conglomerates, right? And that was these companies that were using junk debt to acquire wildly divergent businesses. So you would have essentially an IBM that was also acquiring a waste management company, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Was
And
that just them diversifying their assets or just like trying to gain power? Like what's the reason why they would want a waste management company?
well, there's a lot of reasons, some of which are that it allows them to see. Now I'm going to get into the complexities of Wall Street, right? But it
Yeah.
allows them to run several different finance books and not run them consolidated. So if you have bad earnings, you can kind of shuffle them a little bit. You're not going to consolidate them all into one. At the same time, you want to lever the company as much as you can at that point, depending upon the price you can acquire debt. So there's a lot of different reasons, but essentially what we were seeing very quickly was them spinning them off, right? They would acquire them, hold on to them for 2 years, spin them off. As they would find new buyers for it. They would spin them off as IPOs, and there was just a lot of liquidity that was created.
Now, when you
So
say spin them off, does that mean sell them off or?
yeah, sell them off to essentially another conglomerate, right?
Okay.
And that exchange continued. So it was very high velocity. There was a lot of transactions in those companies. There were the downstream companies that were being acquired by conglomerates, waste management companies, sanitation companies, all that type of stuff was really big. So, we were seeing the fragmentation of the world, right? And what you saw in the 90s and into the 2000s and 2010s is the fragmentation of the world. You were seeing companies create little niche markets. Look, my mentor created CNN, okay? He created with Ted Turner. Two people created CNN. Ted Turner was the money. His first hire was Reese Schonfeld, who used to be Life Story. My mentor has left us. His body has left us. But what that really was fragmenting the TV market, right? They fragmented the TV market. There was only around 6 channels at that time. There was no dedicated news channel. They took a chunk of that. That's what they did, right? Then, after he left CNN, about 5 years later, he created the Food Network. So now they were going from a niche market down into another niche market, and that trend continued, until a few years ago. And now with the cost of debt, cost of opportunity, there's just so many reasons why we're seeing a defragmentation of the world right now. And you have to buy the defragmenters, and you've got to buy the cartels. The world is being cartelized. So you have to buy the cartels. So when you say what's a good point to get into the market, people were telling me when I was holding Tesla for 10 years that it was a piece of crap. And I can name people's names. They were planting bogus stories in the business journals to try and bring the stock down. That's called shaking the tree. They were trying to get cheap stock to cover their short position. Yeah. And they were all wrong. They were all just making up stuff, and it gets a little bit boring and complex. But essentially, Tesla did pretty well, right? I was right. They were wrong. I've heard the same thing with so many different positions I've had, including Facebook. And the most important thing is you don't think about them daily. One of the mistakes that Bitcoin is creating, it's creating a lot of people that are going to be living on boxes soon, because they're living in boxes, not on boxes. They're going to be inside of them, right? Yeah. And you're seeing this kind of opportunity. You're seeing kind of momentum, and people are jumping on the momentum, which is fine because I bought it at 20,000 too, right?
Nice.
So you're seeing momentum, you're seeing a trend, right? And you're seeing the self-reinforcing loop, and hopefully it goes to 10 million or whatever it does. But that doesn't mean the person who bought it now is going to be holding it then. And that doesn't mean that the proceeds of that, they're going to invest wisely, because what you're seeing is people's behavior about investing changing. Yeah. It used to be you would buy something and hold it, stick it on your pillow, because it wasn't tripling and quadrupling in a day. Now, people's behavior has been Uberified, right? They need that hit. Everything in politics has been Uberified. They want an immediate response, and their investments show that. So I've owned Boeing, really heavily for like the last 6 months. And every time there's bad news, people on Twitter or people message me or text me, and they're like, look at this. And they're wasting their time. The stock was just at 220. And while they're kind of observing it so they can say gotcha to me, I don't pay attention to it.
On the daily, right.
I don't pay attention to the bad news. because most of the bad news that they're hearing about has already been baked into the stock. So I would say if there's one place to start, one absolute best place to start is just as and I've watched a few of your shows, so I kind of get a profile of your listeners. They're very smart, right?
Yeah.
And I think a few days ago you were actually talking about some books. A book that you had planned on reading, I forget what it was, but so
there's a few.
Yeah. So if I were to say what's a hobby, what they should be doing, one of my hobbies is going on to earnings conference calls. It's sick. It's like watching a movie. It's awesome.
Where do you get into that?
Oh, you can just go on, you can jump on Facebooks, you can jump on Googles. I mean, they're all available to you. And 2 years ago, Facebook was saying, look, we're going to cut 80% of our staff. We are aiming for 80% of our staff to be contractors, 1099s. And I'm telling everybody this. I'm like, listen, have you heard what Facebook is saying? And they were like, no, Facebook's coming to my college and they're recruiting and I see these fairs. And now look what happened, right? So Facebook used this, they used COVID, right, as an opportunity to lessen their inventory of risk. So how did I know that? I knew that not just because of some intuitive sense, because, intuitive you can't cash an intuitive check, right? I knew that because I'm listening to their earnings calls, and analysts will ask them these questions because analysts are saying, how can you improve your earnings? What's going to happen next? And one of the biggest drains on them is the cost of their human capital.
Do you think there's anything that's going to be able to stop this cartelizing, like essentially these big tech companies taking over every industry? Essentially, I mean, they're creating their own monopolies. No, nothing's going to stop it.
I'm going to put the mic a little bit closer. Would that be better, or you can hear me good?
I can hear you fine. Yeah, okay, it sounds good to me.
Okay, cool. I got a fan. I did one with Anthony Pompliano, right? It was on his thing. And that day, the market was down like 1,000 points. So I was on like a spare computer at my family office. And the sound was bad. And I'm listening to music to keep me calm. And it was just crazy. So I got all the equipment. But so I would just tell people, listen to some conference calls. That's it. Do it as a hobby. Forget about the little bullshit companies. I like the lemonades, and I argue with a lot of venture capitalists because they want to talk to me about earnings. I don't give a shit about earnings. If I know the world is being cartelized, I want to buy the cartels. And you may say, well, it doesn't make sense for them to buy this company. I'll give you how I learned some lessons. About 2003, Jason Calacanis had a company called Weblogs. And I forget who his partner was, and I knew his Brian Alvey. Okay? Brian Alvey, who's a genius, and Jason Calacanis, who I suppose is a genius. He knows marketing style really well. He knows user interfaces really well. He was a big bull on Apple, right? And he's become a venture capitalist, right? So Jason Calacanis and Brian Alvey had this company called Weblogs, and it got bought out for $25 million. The company was, I'm going to tell you right now, no matter what they tell you, they love it. There was no company there, right? It was vapor. They're going to disagree with me, but it was vapor. So, so I lived at that time right across the street from Michael's. Do you know that restaurant?
Of course. Oh, Michael's the restaurant. No,
yeah.
I was thinking the art store.
Where do you live?
I'm in Maryland.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. So Michael's, my regular restaurant, because I'm a New Yorker. That's the way things work, right?
I knew that. I can hear it in your accent.
Yeah, my regular restaurant is called Gattipardo, right?
Okay.
And the sister restaurant is Mozzarella Alvina. I've been going to Gattipardo. I've been going to Jean for 25 years. Okay. And it's where all the top of the 1% will go to eat.
Okay.
And I just sneak in because I've known him for 25 years. I just get to sneak in, and he's awesome. And his sister restaurant is where Paul McCartney goes almost every day when he's in the city for lunch. I've seen him. I know. I just gawk. Cool. I just gawk. What are you going to say?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, I don't even know where I was. Right. I was lost.
Yeah. Why did you start talking about the restaurant?
Oh, okay. So we're talking about Weblogs. right?
Yes. Yeah. Right. The vapor
Yeah.
company.
So my mentor, Reese Schonfeld, was having lunch there because he had a regular table there with Dick Parsons, who had the big center table, right? Who used to be the head um, of it. And I at that time they had just bought Weblogs, and
Okay.
I asked somebody who was very in that circle of Tom Warner, AOL, why they do it, and I didn't understand it. And he said, "Well, we just wanted to buy it at any price. We were just going to buy it." So that night, or within that range, I think it was that night. I told my mentor what that person said. He was like, "Well, did you get an answer?" And I said, "No." He said, "We just bought it at any price." So what happened is they had a board meeting, and the board meeting said, "Listen, are we into space? Are we in advertising into blogs?" Um, the answer was no, and they said, "Okay, well, buy something." The money wasn't even an expense. $25 million is their marketing budget, right?
Yeah.
So these days, if you learn from that, right, you take in that lesson, right, that they needed to satisfy their shareholders that they were doing something, right, that there was movement.
Yeah.
Uh, so they needed to satisfy their shareholders that there was movement and hopefully progress,
Okay.
and the impact that would have on their earnings going forward. But most importantly, that they were into space, that they were involved in space. If an analyst said on the call, "Are you in advertising into blogs?" They would say, "Yes, we are." Money didn't make a difference to them.
That's
He
so
should have
messed up
sold it.
thinking about all the people that are actually out there struggling when a company's like, yeah, let's just move $25 million to show our shareholders that we're working on something.
Well, you're seeing
You know?
that now because you're seeing that. I did an investor series. Everyone should watch my investor series. It's not because I'm touting it. It's because I've been bullish on America for so long,
Yeah.
and I discussed this, and I have really good guests. And one of them was Ian Sigler, who's one of the top venture capitalists really in the world right now.
Okay.
And the night before, we were disagreeing, and he was like, "Well, I can't buy Lemonade or this stock or that stock because it makes no sense for the earnings." And I said, "It doesn't make a difference anymore. You have to take that Weblogs experience and now multiply it times 1,000 because of the cost of capital and for a whole bunch of different reasons. Just multiply it by 1,000. It doesn't make a difference anymore. These companies have an inexhaustible supply of money now."
Hmm. So my problem, or not necessarily my problem, but what I see as being a problem. You said you want to talk about this great roll up of power, and that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. What you're describing is these cartels, this big tech, these huge companies that are, just machines that are moving forward and getting bigger and bigger and taking. And you're saying, basically skitch onto this because they're gonna get big.
Look, the way
Become a part of it.
everybody can figure out, hopefully, what's happening in the world, right? It goes without
I
saying.
hope so.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So we're being third worldified for the first time in America. We're seeing this kind of announcement of a caste system, essentially,
Yeah.
where there's going to be
Right.
W-2s who are kind of the elites, the
Mhm.
nobles, and then there's going to be the 1099 contractors, that most of which will be fighting in the Thunderdome, right? It's pretty obvious that that's what's going to be happening, and that a
Yeah.
lot of the tech elites are displacing our political nobles, right? The sovereignty, the inherited sovereignty of some of our nobles, like Pelosi and all those. And we're
Yeah.
seeing kind of a transformation of our people operating system. I've been talking about this for a long time. It's a transformation of our people operating system. And now people have finally realized that we've had the Constitution swapped out. And in its place, almost imperceptibly at first, has been the terms of service, right? So now everyone's talking about that as though they're a genius. Now everyone is saying, "Hey, you know what? These companies are just making trillions off of us." I was telling people this 2 years ago. So when the market came down, I'm like, "Look, nothing has changed. They're taking over. Just buy them. You can't go wrong." I think Facebook was $170 at the time. I think Tesla, adjusted for the split, was like forget about adjusted for the split, was like $400 at that time. So it's gone up, tenfold almost. So if you know what's happening, right? If you know what the future is, you know that there's going to be this caste system. You know the plebs are going to get the shitty education where they're being just terrorized by woke. And if you know that they're swapping the rhetoric of social justice and what used to be the rhetoric of economic justice, right?
Yeah.
Is now being swapped out, and being swapped in is social justice. And they hope that
Right.
nobody doesn't know. So you're going to have a lot of poor, stupid people, and that's unfortunate. But you've got to make sure that you're not one of them, right? Or you got to make sure that your children aren't one of them. You're a good-looking guy. You're going to have 10 kids. You got to make sure you're.
Whoa. Maybe let's start with 2, and then we'll see what happens after that.
You have any kids?
I don't know. But I found the woman. I found the woman. She's amazing, and we have plans for kids eventually, but haven't gotten started on that.
I have a son who's a little bit older than you. Get it done. You're wasting time, man. Get it done. You're gonna love it. They've got a baby boy coming in March.
Oh, that's awesome. Congrats.
They won't tell me the name. though. Is that
killing you? Is that killing you?
It is, because I'm like that kid that on the days before Christmas, I used to hunt throughout the house, open up every drawer, every little nook and cranny, looking for my present in advance, right?
Huh.
And then when I'd find out, because I'd always find out I'm devious, then on Christmas Day, I'd have to act surprised about it, right? I'd have to act surprised and appreciative about it. And the worst was when it was a shitty present, right?
Yeah.
That's the worst, when you know it's coming.
It's like, oh, man.
I know, right?
So you've always been kind of looking into the future and prepping for it. That's what I'm getting, like all the way from when you were a kid. I
forgot to share this. I'm going to share this on Twitter. I told everybody I was going to share it on Twitter. Is it on your feed?
We're live on my YouTube page.
Yeah. Did you post it on Twitter?
I did post it on Twitter, and I tagged you, so you can find it.
Oh, did you tag me? All right, cool.
Yeah,
well, I'm going to do that.
Tagged you.
It's rude, right? But I'm going to do it because
no, it's fine. Look, good. my show is not the most professional show. I like to have it more relaxed and chill. You know, there's not high stakes. You know, we're having a good conversation, so it's good.
So now
you just told me to have 10 kids, and I'm like, let's change the subject.
No. So now I don't see it. So
no, I'm just messing with you.
But now I don't see the tweet you did.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So now what I'm going to do, right?
Okay, I got you right here.
Oh, I'm going to do this.
I just sent it to you.
I'm going to retweet it. Right?
That works too.
I'm going to retweet it. Now watch this. Now what I'm going to do, okay, is I'm going to go to YouTube itself. I'm going to click through the link. So you're going to hear it for 1 second. Now what I'm going to do is, you see? Watch that. Now I'm going to pause it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share it. Watch this.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to share it. Just watch this. Okay.
Wait, what am I looking for?
You can't see a thing. I'm telling you, watch this like through my eyes. Okay. So,
okay.
Now what I'm going to do.
I'm looking through your eyes.
Oh, you see that? You get to hear yourself. Wait. Okay, so now
I hear myself.
Yeah, get over it. You sound great. Yeah. So now watch this.
I hear myself.
Okay.
Are we doing some trippy YouTubeception? Is that what's happening?
You feel better now, right? You feel better. Okay.
Oh, I felt great. This has been fun.
Okay, so now watch this. So now I'm just going to say live now.
Yeah, that works.
And then should people be thoughtful and join us, I'm going to repeat every single thing that I said. We're going to start from there. So
from the beginning, we're going to start all the way over. Welcome to the show, Adam. Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Wait, you got to have the music going.
The music kept you chill.
We missed it.
The music kept you chill, right? The music was good. So now.
Oh, man. You know my show, man. I'm chill. I'm chill, baby.
You are. So now I'm back. Man.
That's good.
So, so if you know what the future is, you got to make sure you have an obligation, a moral obligation to your future to don't suffer it. Right? That's
why I dedicate myself to doing research and coming and going live every day, because this is something that I enjoy. I love being on stage. I was a musician for a long time, and that's kind of where I gained this love of being on stage. Now I get to be on stage every day. And the best thing about this is people send me letters. In fact, I got a letter today. Let me see if I could just, normally I don't do this when I've got a guest on, but I got an amazing letter that, I almost, I teared up a little bit, like, cause it was just saying about how incredible they, let's see, it's kind of long. See if I can sum it up, but it's just, Just a little clip here is you're bringing a lot of good to a lot of people, and I just want to say thank you for doing it and hope you keep going. Keep being you, doing what you do, sharing it with all of us. You're doing great. And this is just a little bit. They go on to say about how much that I've inspired them
Really?
to stand up for themselves, to speak out. My music is part of that. The things that I say, the way that I do my research, and kind of have like a open stream of consciousness of just talking about things that I'm realizing. It's like I have a purpose, and I feel that I have a purpose, and that it feels so good. And it's because it's probably because of Nisha. Is my wife's name. She's helped me. I've always been very good at living in the moment. I'm very good at that, living in the now, being here, and present. But I don't think about the future.
Hold on for a
And
second. I'm going to ask you questions.
go ahead. Yeah. Ask me. What do you got?
Do you do yoga?
I don't, but she wants me to.
You got to. You'd be
Yeah?
good at it. Let me tell you why. I don't do yoga. Right?
Okay.
Wall Street people and venture capitalists, and I'll give everybody a little background on myself in this moment. But Wall Street people, venture capitalists, and finance people don't live in the moment. We are not conditioned to live in the moment, right? And so we're always living in anticipation of the next quarterly earnings report or our next that we hit our next milestone. We're always living, and even now, I struggle to recognize and appreciate and kind of carry every single moment. That's why I listen to that music.
Yeah.
It helps you, and you'd be really good at yoga because you won't struggle as much as I've done for 20 years struggling with, awareness of the moment.
I don't know. I've tried yoga before, and there's something about my moment, and me being, at one with my thoughts, and someone showing me this is what it's like to be at one with, you know what I mean? There's something that I've kind of grown into my own, like, I don't know, something about yoga. It is physical, you have to physically do moves, and I'm not necessarily, I mean, I'm a skateboarder, so I am very physical in some senses, but I don't know, it feels like there's something different. But
So let me ask you another question.
Sure.
Do you meditate?
No, but this is something she really wants me to do, is meditate. And actually many people that are close to me are like, you should meditate.
How do you know you're really living in the moment? If you don't have like a practice, if you don't practice something and you don't have a guide, how do you really know you're living in the moment?
That's a good question.
Maybe you're not living in the moment. Maybe you're just not having an awareness of tomorrow or yesterday. That doesn't mean you're living in this moment. It just means you're negligent about tomorrow and yesterday. There's a difference.
I could see what you're saying there, and I agree there is a difference, and maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not necessarily living in the moment, but I think it comes and goes. I was just talking today. I used to smoke a lot. I don't know if you've ever smoked pot, but I used to smoke. I don't smoke anymore.
I don't do pot.
And well, I used to, and I feel like my mentality has changed a lot since I don't do that anymore, and I'm glad I don't, because it kind of like, it gave you like a disconnect between reality and life. And now that I have not smoked for a long time, it's been a while since I don't even miss it. I don't think about it, but I used to, a lot more prevalent when I was, I was a skateboarder, a musician. It was just like kind of like a part of everyday life. Now that I don't do that anymore, I realize how much more in the moment I am now, because I have something to compare to when I was so disconnected. And I feel like what you just said, like, how do you know that you weren't just not thinking about the future or the past?
I'm going to give you an exercise right now. I'll give everybody an exercise that I learned, right? Because I came out of Wall Street, and I'll give everybody a little bit of my background. I left school. I went to college for 1 year, right? And I was like, this is a waste of time. I couldn't figure out why people, ever since I was a little kid, I knew essentially I wanted to be a salesperson, right? Because I knew that I had charisma. I knew that I was very intelligent. I know I have a cognitive intelligence, which is helpful, right? And so in that type of way, there's artistic intelligence. There's lots of different ways intelligence expresses itself. So I knew I wanted to be in sales. I knew I wanted to be in finance, and I knew that I was going to be an executive in a large company, right? And at that point, I would no longer be in sales. I'd be in charge of revenue, or I'd be the CEO of it, or I would found the company. So I knew that, but I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that that's what was going to happen. So I always read books with that kind of ambition, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
And when I got to college, I was like, this is a waste of time. I don't need these courses. These courses, I saw my future. And I was like, these courses have nothing to do with what I'm interested in. I don't care about your remedial English or whatever English they put me in. You know, they automatically stick you into these things. It was like a 100 English, whatever it was. They score you on a thing. And I was like, I'm not interested in this. I've been, I want to go into finance. I want to go to Wall Street. I knew what was happening. So I cold called into about 15 different firms. And back then you had the New York Times, right? And you would look through the New York Times as Sundays and you would mark them off. I'm 54. If somebody here is as old as I am, then they'll remember those days, right? And we used to go through the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times classifieds Sunday. We used to go through them. I cold called into about 20 different firms. I cold called into, I got about somewhere between 7 and 11 interviews. I finally had a choice between Goldman Sachs and Grunthal and Company. And Goldman Sachs, the top analyst there I would have worked under, his name was Rick Sherlin. And he discovered like Microsoft and Novell and Lotus companies a little bit before your time. And I decided to go to Grunthal, where he was doing the tech hardware type of stuff. Then they, after a few years, they paid for my college, right? They were like, Adam, now you need to you need to go to college. I was a large shareholder for my clients and myself, a company named Micron. Micron was going through a lot of short squeezes, and I'd bore everybody with what was going on, but I did really well. I started my own company, my own research boutique. It was bought by Alex Brown. I decided I didn't want to go back to work in a Wall Street environment. It was boring to me. I felt like I had done it before. I wanted to do new things. So I traveled with my wife for a few years. Then I became an investor in a company called Pseudo Programs, which was kind of like broadcast.com during that time. They were competing companies. I can tell you all about broadcast.com. And they were competing companies. They were working on real player stuff, again, before your time. Ultimately, I cashed out of a few of those positions. It used to be called Silicon Alley. Jason Calacanis was there. Fred Wilson was there with his wife, Joanne. I had invested $50,000 in my Wall Street days in a company that's now called Insperity. Okay. And Insperity was preparing to go public, and they needed to build up a North American, a presence on the East Coast. And I took over, sales. We built out the East Coast incredibly well. We did incredibly well with Rush Limbaugh. We were one of his big advertisers. He was really good to us. They created a campaign for us, so it's unfortunate to see his passing, right? And in 2006, I was one of their largest shareholders. So I had a choice. The stock went down to $2 a share. People were shorting our stock down. New York Stock Exchange listed stock. I acquired millions of shares. I had a choice of either staying as sales, right? And everything was good. I sold a company to them, and long story, but I did well. Or being one of the largest shareholders. You can't do both. So they made that very, very. They told me pretty blank, point blank. You've got to make a decision. We've been postponing this for a long time. I left. Stock went to $60 a share. Today it's called Insperity. Became an investor in a company called TriNet. I cashed out of TriNet when it went public. They did an IPO. Was an investor in a company called Workday, which also IPO'd. 2013, I had 3 companies IPO'd. In 2014, I think it was like 3 companies. By 2014, and I was massively depressed. Right, I was massively depressed because I always lived in anticipation of earnings tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I'm always planning for earnings tomorrow. I'm always waiting for the next earnings call, for the next event to occur. And I no longer had that in my life, right? I no longer needed that in my life. And I knew when I was a kid that I was going to retire early, but I never thought of what I was going to do when I retired. I just knew it was going to happen, right?
You think that's where Bezos is at right now? Now that he's stepping back from Amazon?
No.
Focusing on space?
Oh yeah, he's going to be a trillionaire. It's not even any him. And Musk hopefully will be have a little bit more money, right? I like to
Yeah.
Elon Musk, but he's
Yeah.
going to be a billionaire. I'm a big fan of Space Force, so I was massively depressed, and I had no awareness of the moment. I had no awareness even of the past, right? So when I would meditate, when I would try and meditate, my mind would move around too much. I couldn't hold my thoughts back. So
Okay.
here's an exercise I learned, right? And it's so easy, but it shows you the way your mind works. So I guess we shouldn't do it now, but when you close your eyes, right?
Okay.
Do it with a stopwatch, right? Close your
doing
eyes for 1 minute. Don't
Mhm.
do it now if people don't want to do it now.
I was gonna do it right now. No? All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So then
Explain.
we're gonna put
No,
on
no,
some.
no. Let's just explain it,
Okay.
Don. Yeah.
So when you close your eyes for
Mhm.
1 minute, it's actually might be very excruciating to you. And let me tell you what happens. These are natural processes in the mind. What happens is the mind wanders. You're thinking about your mind time travels, right? You're thinking about meetings that you had, right? Yesterday, you're thinking about meetings that you're going to have tomorrow. So the first thing is the mind time travels, right? The second thing, and this is proven, this is scientific. These are all proven. I mean, they have sciences around this.
Yeah.
New sciences, behavioral sciences, which they didn't have before. So another thing that's going to happen is you're going to question your own identity. So Adam Crigler is the type of person. You've already helped me understand your identity. Anthony Pompliano, who does a lot of meditation, very smart guy, says his identity is Anthony Pompliano is a happy person. I grilled him on that, but nevertheless. So Adam Crigler has already identified a little bit of his identity to me because you told me about that letter, right? So when you're thinking, when you're meditating, your mind's going to travel, and then you're going to be thinking about your own identity. Adam Crigler is the type of person who. How do you think about yourself? How does your mind treat itself as a client, right? So you're going to be thinking about Adam Crigler is the type of person who. Now, when I was working nonstop for 30 years, I thought of myself as Adam is the type of person who can get things done, that's reliable, that can close deals. If he says this is going to happen, then it's going to happen. He's reliable, that will always exceed expectations, that can represent, himself and his companies well, and he's very candid. I thought about those things. All my identity was work related. Nevertheless, when people shut their eyes, mind time travels. Other thing the mind does is it says to itself, Adam Townsend is the type of person who, and it ponders that. It really does. Then the other thing is your mind is saying, how do you want me to think of myself? Right? You're a client of your mind.
Yeah,
and so,
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So then the mind is going to do something else. The mind is going to say, I want Adam Crigler, right? The mind, while you're meditating, you're going to say, I want people to think of Adam Crigler as the type of person who, right? And so I do, meditate, right? But it's been very painful for me because it's not a natural behavior for me. So I work out, right? And because I always worked out with weights, and I never really did a lot of cardio, when you're doing weights, you become a very shallow breather, right? Because you're just going like that, right?
Yeah.
And then you stop, you just kind of do nothing for a minute, and then you do very shallow breath. That's not a good thing. So I even have to practice breathing. And Jim Shaughnessy and I have discussed this a lot because both of us are meticulous log keepers. I keep a note of everything I've done that day. I actually have a daily planner. Right?
Yeah.
And on my daily planner, I'm going to include, what my schedule is. I have a lot of businesses in India, so I live in two time zones. I live part-time in Bengaluru, India. And and I'll think about what I did that day, right? And as I'm doing it, I have slots for myself, right? So I slotted this time, right? And but I also, more important to me, is something I learned from Seneca, because I didn't have parents who understood me. I'm a nuclear reactor. I'm a nuclear explosion. I didn't have parents that knew how to deal with a nuclear explosion, right? They were lower middle class people. They didn't know what to do with a kid that's a nuclear explosion, right? So when I finally cashed all my checks, now I had to solve me, and I sought fathers. One of them was my mentor, right? I had a few different mentors. One of them was Reese Schoenfeld, who I miss very dearly. Okay.
Yeah.
And another one I acquired was Seneca, Letters to Lucilius, and On the Shortness of Life. And I learned that for me to have an appreciation of the moment requires effort, and it requires practice. So in order for me to improve my awareness of the moment, so now what I do, and I've been doing this for 10 years, I have every single one for 10 years, every single one. Jim Shaughnessy does also. Ask him about it. Amazing guy. Amazing guy. So I will keep a log of what time I woke up, what time I got out of bed. Did you know? I can tell you the way the mind works. And if it takes me a long time to get out of bed, from the time I wake up to get out of bed, it means I'm going to be somewhat depressed, right? Because I have to have an awareness of my depression, because my baseline's a little bit low. So, and I can match that up. So then my schedule, because I deal with India, begins pretty early, 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll in my notations, in my daily planner, I'll say, did I speak too much? And I'll go back and kind of have a recitation of the conversations I had during the day, right?
Okay.
And I'll think, in this conversation, did I speak too much? Did I listen, right? Just kind of an awareness of myself, right? And then I'll say, did I deceive myself or others? Because one of the things I've learned is how easy and how destructive it is to deceive yourself or others. So although I've discussed somewhat money here and investing, one of the observations I had to make of my own behavior and character was that once I had cashed out, because I had nothing in my life but money, all I would talk about was money.
Yeah.
And I had to have an awareness of that. So that's how I learned of that. And if I were to do one right now, I am doing one right now, but it has to do with my businesses in India and learning languages and a few other things. I have hundreds of different iterations. It depends on what behavior I'm trying to observe. Right now, I'm trying to observe language and cultural skills and kind of the cordiality of different cultures. If I were to have one right now, and I've thought about this, I would change my social media, right? Because I've gotten too addicted to it over the last 2 years, and too much
addicting, isn't it?
Too much of my social interaction is on social media for the last 2 years, and I would change that. And I think that's a part of deception. I think it's a dangerous thing. So one of the reasons I've done these periscopes is because I missed all the intimacy, and this allows me to kind of relieve myself of the burden of social media in my mind, and kind of the deception of 280 characters and all that, and kind of bring the real relationship in with these people that I only know through this channel.
So you said a few amazing things right now. One thing I like about what you essentially were just explaining was understanding yourself, and I think that alone is something that is missing nowadays. And then you even touched on the fact that not only do we need to get to know ourselves more, but we need to reconnect with others, because that both of those things are being lost nowadays with the internet age. With, I mean, not even the internet's kind of still newer. Like you said, the last 2 years, the social media has really ramped up. But
let me ask you a question. Right? If your behavior is bad, you have acquired a bad habit or whatever it is, your wife most likely will make some observation of it and make some, kind of a courteous way of bringing it to your attention. But it's much different in an environment when you're like in a temple, right? Or, whatever a person's faith is. And the faith is not necessarily the most important thing, but people who are more attuned to this type of stuff.
Okay.
And they're very attuned to kind of the dangers of different deceptions. And there's so many. So listening, and I haven't listened that well, so I'm going to put that in my notations, happens to be one of them. It's actually a deception. So, but your wife is not going to tell you, because she already accepts that as part of you. Does that make sense to you?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, she does call me out on things that I may need brought to my attention, which I appreciate from her a lot. But my question to you is, how do we bring that back? How do we explain to people the importance of understanding yourself, self accountability, self understanding, and self awareness? Because it's that alone. I feel like if people focused more on themselves and not what others think of them, what's going on in the rest of the world, when they really cater to themselves and make sure that they're taken care of, I think a lot of issues are going to start slowly solving themselves, because people are not going to start worrying about others so much. And I think that's a big issue right in this day and age right now. Where do we start there?
I don't have any answers for you. I have no answers to anything. I rely on others. I miss very much my I'm not a Buddhist, but I miss very much my Buddhist retreats, right?
Yeah.
I very much miss my bhakti retreats where we would go away for a few days, and people who are more experienced in practice. Because when people say, I'm a spiritual person, and I say, well, do you practice it? And they're like, no, but I'm a spiritual person. That one of the things that's a deception. Did you know
Yeah.
that?
No,
That
but it makes sense to me.
exactly. So I used to be that person that used to say, well, I'm a spiritual person. Okay. Until one day, a minister said to me, well, let's talk about this. How do you practice? And then I realized I was deceived. In fact, she told me she wasn't as blunt about it, but she's good at it, right? I'm
Yeah.
not good at these type of things.
Being nice
But
about
she
it.
was good at it. And that's a deception, because I
Mhm.
wasn't a spiritual person. That was just my way of, my mind servicing its client. And it was very bad because we didn't have an honest relationship. So spirituality requires practice. And, practice is very difficult to acquire out of a book. You
Mhm.
really need that human engagement. And that's
Absolutely.
a dangerous thing, what's happening right now. People are becoming so lipstick. They're making themselves their own kind of God. It's a dangerous thing.
That's true. Like, look at what social media is. Like, we create this online presence, and that's what people they are doing it to convince others that that's what their life is like, but then are holding themselves on this their own pedestal. And then there's this inner battle between realizing that they're not even close to being that person, so that's adding to depression, adding pressure to try to be that person, when you'll never account to that. You'll never be that person, because that's a lie, that's a deception, right?
So now let's look at COVID, right? I was
Sure.
telling you by DM, I've kept a daily log, right? I've kept it because I wanted to observe what was happening. I had a good sense of all the protest and all the dissent that was happening in the world. I'm a specialist in certain things on China. You may know that. I have a family office, and we do forensics on their Exim Bank and on the vulnerabilities of some of their client countries. Kind of boring stuff for you, not boring for me, right?
Right.
And
But important nonetheless, though.
well, yeah, we all have to be finance people, right? You have to be a finance person,
It's
even if
part of
you're a
life.
finance person. So one of the things that I noticed immediately is people were not people were saying wear a mask, right? Wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask. But they were dealing with very imperfect information. They were saying that in January and February, and I knew those videos were not authentic. I
Right.
knew, because I know a lot about you know a lot about China and their diplomacy and the language that they use, and I speak a good chunk of Mandarin. I knew they've got something called discourse power, which means that if they didn't want those little blurbs of those little videos of people spontaneously trembling and then dying on the streets, if they didn't want that circulating on Twitter, it never would have circulated on Twitter. So, and I knew that in December of 2019, in the months preceding, they were having a lot of social disruption, a lot of social dislocation. They had real problems with, Trump's trade. They were really on the losing side of it. They're having a big problem with inflation. They're having a big problem in a whole bunch of things, right? So I knew that there was a lot of protest in China. When they protest in the mainland, people die. It's not like it is here. It's not like BLM over here. Okay, the way it is here is not the way it is over there. China, you disappear. That's it. You're dead, basically. Okay, and you're certainly separated from your family is kind of a best case. They have a 99.9% kind of execution rate, and they don't have a judicial system the way we do. There, every single person is appointed by the Chinese Communist Party, and there's no requirement that they have any law background. Much different thing. And there's very few public type of lawyers available for their defense. So one of the things I noticed is a lot of people, particularly conservatives, were saying, wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask. However, they were dealing with extremely imperfect, Balaji and all these kind of people. They were dealing with extremely imperfect information. There was no way that they reasonably could have come to this conclusion. And even to this day, if you listen to what's actually happening, there is no Socratic dialogue in anything that's happening now, right? So one of the things that we've all probably taught ourselves, right, is how to fragment big questions into smaller pieces, right? That's a Socratic dialogue, and whether we are aware that there's a technique for that, that's what it is. But here, people were saying wear a mask, but there was no dialectical effort being made. There was no dialectical discourse that was happening. So, and it was they were playing with all the ambiguities of words. And now, when you watch these things, notice that there is just no dialectical discourse that's happening. Every single thing is kind of like this person making a very loud kind of a declamation. So those, the maskers and the lockdowners, I kind of think almost of Bitcoiners in their own way, because they created this trend, and then the trend validated itself, and that became a very dangerous thing. And trends can be a valid strategy that can defeat a rational market. That's what we're seeing with Bitcoin right now. And just as it is with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, I'm not criticizing Bitcoin. I'm only making this small kind of connection between the two of them. But the complexity of the COVID environment has, like Bitcoin, has a lot more complexity than somebody who's just on Twitter learning about masks and a little bit about the flus has a lot more complexity than an eager, casual person can comprehend. So it creates a lot of distortion. So what I saw January, February, March is a lot of distortions that were happening. A lot, and I think of Wall Street. So I'm a big kind of George Soros reflexivity type of person. So I was seeing a lot of that theory of reflexivity applied to that's usually used in the financial markets, that were being applied to social engagements. And I saw the same mechanisms being employed by media. The media was not just a participant; they were really the culprit, and they still are. So I created this. So I created a log, and I created it as soon as I saw the reaction that the conservatives were happening in January, the reaction to just a whole bunch of things, and then as is kind of like the etymology of these type of things, it's become something much larger. So now I've actually got a staff helping me out. It's no longer just about COVID. It's about it. It's got about 50 different segments in it. I do have a team that that helps me out with it, and I'm trying to chronicle like Thucydides. I think of myself as I've read History of the Peloponnesian War probably about 6 times. And I think of myself as Thucydides. And I think of this as being my Peloponnesian War. And just as that was the first revolution, perhaps this is the last revolution. And I think what's happening now is the prequel to the science fiction movies that you've seen. And I was telling you about this on DM. When you go to a science fiction movie, right, as soon as you sit in a theater, you're already immersed in the future. You're already inside Blade Runner. You're already inside whatever it is, Total Recall, whatever movie you're watching, right? So there's not a lot of pondering.
I just popped up that the Dark City image here, because you mentioned it.
You did that?
And I watched it, and I checked it out and watched that, and I mean, it's I see what you were talking about. Now, I mean, by the end of the movie, I was like, all right, well, then it became like a sci-fi movie, but the mind control and the manipulation of what they were doing, is basically what we're seeing. Like, you're talking about how the social media was and is now still making a significant difference in the way the masses think. And it's
Oh yeah,
That's frightening to me.
yeah. So, and I know the Alex Proyas. After all those Dark City references, we wound up connecting, right? Because I guess I was
Yeah,
getting a lot of activity, and we had a
yeah.
3 hour conversation actually about it, and and we discussed COVID actually because COVID, to me, the way I look at it is the same way that you've seen that kind of hopefully maybe forensics on QAnon,
Hmm.
right? And there's that same type of tendency to, just as QAnon does, to perceive all these to perceive a connection, and there's a meaningful pattern between all these unrelated and random things, and you're seeing that with COVID. I think 2 days ago there was a video that went viral of these younger women that were like took on the appearance of older people so that they could get those injections.
The vaccination, seriously?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't see that.
yeah. So so there's a lot going on. So I started this COVID log, and I think Dark City is very important for so many different ways. I mean, just the fact that people, just even looking at the Overton window, right? Everyone should watch Dark City so they can understand, and watch the director's cut so you can get some of the voiceovers. But people are at 12 o'clock. Kind of a bell rings. Let's just leave it at that,
Yeah.
and people lose consciousness. And so when Martha wakes up, she's now Betty. Martha went to sleep with 4 kids, and she was an actress, right? A famous
Right.
actress. She goes to sleep. She wakes up a streetwalker, right? She
Yeah.
wakes up with a completely different identity, and she doesn't have the memories even of the prior existences. And we don't know how many of these cycles she's gone through. So even now, with this kind of Overton window, right, is people are having to make atonement for things that they actually did yesterday. So it's even in that the same way that you can apply Dark City to social movements that you're seeing now, because Bill Crystal, goes, the bell rings, Bill Crystal goes to sleep. Bill Crystal unfortunately wakes up the same person. However, now he's got all the guilt of the previous Bill Crystal. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you should definitely watch it. So I really think of it is in every new instance of a person, they have to expiate themselves. They have to atone for the person that they were in a previous existence. I think about this stuff a lot, and it is what it is. And I also think about how cruel and mischievous our elites were. Our elites are right now, and
Yep.
that they're completely unconstrained. And when people are unconstrained, their worst comes out. And
You know,
so,
I gotta just say, it almost looks like you could have played a part in one of these as part of the. I don't remember the name of these controllers. Where, well, look at this. Can you
yeah,
see this? Can you see this image?
yeah, 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 yeah. I get that a lot.
Do you?
So,
Well, you
yeah.
talk about Dark City a lot, so if people watch it, they're like,
But
hmm,
what happened, right, is now our elites are completely unconstrained, and
right,
we are now seeing the worst come out of them. And historically, what would happen is there would be some type of people would starve and they'd kill the prince, right? Or a
yeah,
new prince would come in and he would make peace, or there's just, we can go over Machiavelli and the Prince, and a discourse on Livy, political science. Nevertheless, people would get hungry, they'd kill the prince. People would be dissatisfied, they would be paying too much in taxes, they would kill the prince, whatever it was. So, because historically poverty and hunger make people industrious.
yeah.
So now what you're seeing is the elites taking out that. So they're taking out the poverty, they're taking out the hunger. So you're also taking out people's industriousness.
Hmm. What do you see happening? What is
Uh,
the path here?
I'm very optimistic. I just think we're going through a transformation of our people operating system.
Okay.
So I'm hopefully everybody knows I'm extremely optimistic, and perhaps I sound to you maybe pessimistic, but that's because you have a nostalgia for a republic that hasn't existed for several years, and you might mourn the loss of our constitution, but you never read it, right? You can't be impiety. You can't suffer in impiety if you were never pious. if you never learn the Constitution, you're not really sure what you've lost. You just know that schools are teaching crap, that this is happening, that that's happening. So, you know, I do see what's happening with the elites. You know, it's kind of hard to miss. I do see kind of the intra-elite squabbles, right? There's an inelastic demand for some of these, you know, for the elites. And I think that you're seeing a lot of social disorder because the elites are trying to preserve their power, and they're very afraid of giving, you know, that power up. And they've got all the levers that are needed to affect change that benefits them with much less efficacy and effort than, you know, as you saw with Trump, than, you know, Trump and his insurgency could employ.
Yeah.
So I think about this stuff a lot. It's kind of boring, I guess, but I do think about it a lot.
I mean, everyone should. I mean, it involves everybody. Everyone's affected by all of this, you know. So, I mean, it should be on everyone's mind what's going to happen moving forward. You know, we see these governors that are not releasing their emergency powers, even though they have no need for them. You know, North Dakota just made mask mandates illegal, so you're not allowed to even do it in North Dakota. And it's like, so we have different states now making completely different moves. And then look at what just happened to Texas. Texas asked the federal government, hey, we need to basically go against your environmental regulations to handle this storm, because people will die, and we know that they will. And the federal government, more importantly, the Biden administration, said, no, sorry, we're going to adhere to this. And then people started dying, and then they were like, we have to do it now, and then did it. So it's like the powers are clearly being used to control people, and it's not like we the people. Does that even exist? Like you said, I didn't read the Constitution. You're right. I haven't read the full Constitution. I can't cite the Constitution right now. You're right. It's like it's something that it's an idea that I'm familiar with, but I can't state it. I feel free still, but how long is that going to last? You know, what is it? Am I deceiving myself? You know, is it just the one big illusion?
So what I think has happened a lot, and it's kind of I don't know if I would say a blight, but it's kind of it's interesting for me to observe, is that your generation and the generations that are coming past are they're working in a factory. Okay, so I grew up, you know, where me being industrious in that way, because I was hungry, right? Is when I joined a company, I was permitted to walk into every department, the marketing department, the sales department, whatever it was, even the mailroom. And I saw I saw the living organism, right? I didn't just see the arm of it or a couple of its fingers. I got to see the entire thing, right? So I got to get a good system view. I wanted to understand the system view, and everybody was helpful to me in acquiring a really good system view of things. But kids today are not learning that. So what's happening? Not only are they not learning it, but it's a bad thing within their job, because everybody these days, if they're a tech worker or whatever it is working on an assembly line. And this is what happened with COVID, right? Everybody today is working on assembly line. So what happens? I'm going to put my soda down. So what happens is, imagine you're working on an assembly line, okay? You're like Lucille Ball, right? And Ethel Mertz, and you got the chocolates coming to you. You didn't see that, but what I said is really funny, right? So
I know what you're talking about, actually, but go ahead.
It's funny, right? What I said is funny. I think it's really funny in a moment. So you're working on an assembly line, and then a product arrives to you. You stamp it, and then the product leaves. Before the product arrives, you have no awareness of it. You know that a product's going to arrive on your shelf, right? And you say, you know, it's going to have this type of dimensions, but that's about it. You have really no awareness of where it was before, its history, and all the effort required to manufacture it. You know nothing about it. All you know is that the product arrived at your station, you stamped it, and then it got sent off mystery, right?
Yeah.
Like a Smurf's Guide to Making Millions, right? So step one is it arrives there. Well, actually, it's not the Smurf's Guide to Making Millions, but nevertheless, it arrives, mystery. You stamp it, it leaves, mystery. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening with COVID. It's the reason people can't even ask questions. People, if you take a look at what's happening with anything, with global warming or whatever they call it now, climate change, but particularly with COVID, because of all the news cycles, people are not asking questions. There is no mind effort. People who think they're smart, they are smart. They're not asking questions because they're only asking Twitter questions. They're asking 280 character questions. They're just stamping it and going on. Do you follow me?
Yeah, of
So
course.
these people are anti-consequentialists. That's what
Hmm.
they are. They're anti-consequentialists.
How do we solve that?
You
How do we
you
move
don't
on from that?
you don't solve it. You don't have the resources to solve it. I'm not sure if you want to solve it, but you can negotiate with it. And so what you're really asking is, perhaps how can you negotiate with something like this? Well, you have to invest in the market,
Yeah.
right? You can see that the world is being across. In China, it's even worse. But nevertheless, you can see that the world is becoming kind of torn apart by centrifugal force. That's pretty obvious. You can see that people are becoming solipsistic, right? And they're even taking pride in it. That we don't speak a common language. We don't have common morals. We can't even agree what a gender is. And I don't mean to pick on that, but just to show you that I'll use another word. People can't agree on what the word community means anymore. It means something different than it used to mean.
Yeah.
It used to mean people who had kind of a disparate, but they could get along. Okay. Now it means somebody who everybody gets along because there is no disparate, right? So,
Yeah.
so you can't solve that problem. That problem was going to happen regardless of any type of impotence or any type of rechanneling it, of channeling it elsewhere. You just have to deal with it. But most importantly, if you can see that that's the way it's proceeding, you now have an obligation to yourself and to your family not to suffer it, because it can only go a couple of different ways. So I'm much more interested in the effectual truth of things than the imagination of it.
Hmm. All right, and that's a practical, logical step of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in this instance, and writing my chronicle, I'm much more interested in the evils kind of that humans do than the goods they aspire to. And I see a lot of anti-consequentialists who, they're stamping things, and they don't care about its consequences once it leaves their station. So they're stamping, perhaps it's a nuclear bomb that at its next station is going to kill them, right? So they just have no awareness of it. So they were stamping COVID with their little imprint in January, February. They were saying, well, why can't America build hospitals as quickly as China can? I can discuss that in detail. And you were seeing CBS, you were seeing PBS even advocating for a type of temporary communism here. And I've got that on record also. I've had to hard copy everything because they're changing history as we speak. And in fact, when you take a look at those National Guards, because I've got a thing on the militarization of the police, I've got another one on the rioters. I mean, it's just really, I try not to get lost in the intricacies of my own creation. So I have a staff helping me out now. But so even if you take a look at those National Guard who had absolutely no reason to be in DC, right? No reason to be there, just no reason to be there. It was an overwhelming show of force that wasn't needed. I think Jack Murphy, I think I saw Jack Posobiec did a Periscope 2 days ago where he walked through and it's like the green zone in Iraq. It was bizarre. But you saw all those images of the National Guard there, right?
Yep.
And then they're imprinting history. Then you saw the National Guards without a place to sleep, right? Did you see that?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
And then they shoved them into the parking lot,
Okay, so they're creating history. They're not interested in whether it's true today. You have no power. You're a pleb. They don't care whether you have an awareness that it's not true and that this is some type of a creation. In 5 years, it will have been true. So they're imprinting history.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting because I want to be that historian, because I think in the future, people are going to want to know what happened. And I think there will be elites, and I think those elites are going to have a tremendous amount of intellectual curiosity and inquisitiveness about how did this happen. And they'll be able to kind of look at pieces of it. Like I see what some people are writing about COVID. They're wrong. I don't care about COVID. I don't care about masks. I don't care about wearing masks. People say, well, what do you think of wearing masks? I call that the trolley problem. All these people that you hear and that you see, and you see the same people on Twitter that I see, they're all trying to show you their solution for the trolley problem. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, of course. It's either which is, I mean, it's you got two choices. Either both of them are bad. One's less bad, but it's a perception issue. So
Yeah. So what they're doing is everybody in humanity right now in every country is being forced to solve the trolley problem, right? Every single person. And not only that, do they have to solve the trolley problem? They have to present their solution to the rest they have to go to the front of the classroom and present their solution and get unanimous approval on their solution. And in our fragmented, solipstic, atomized society, that can't happen, right? So this is an endless game of trolley problems. So all you're seeing when you hear journalists writing about COVID and you think they're smart, they're the problem. Even if they're like, we should open up society, they're the problem also. I don't want to participate in the trolley problem. I don't care about their solution. I don't care. You cannot engage with the trolley problem, and you have to think about it like that, because people are making you choose. Well, look, in this case, you'll get a herd immunity, this and that. Don't engage with that. They're trying to persuade you of their solution to the trolley problem. They want to talk about vaccines twice a day and this type of vaccine. They're trying to present to you their solution for the trolley problem.
yeah,
And the only way out of that self-reinforcing loop is to get off that ride.
get off the trolley.
You have to do it. And when people are talking to you about it, you have to let them know you're stepping away from it.
Mm-hmm. That's not easy.
I think about this a lot.
Yeah, it's not an easy.
You have to be willing, no matter what. You have to be willing to break a sweat in your mind. You have to. And so what happens is, if you're not willing to, let's say somebody tells you about their solution for masks or whatever it is. Well, we shouldn't wear masks. We should wear masks. Only this people. That's their solution to the trolley problem. They want your agreement to it. But the difficulty is they're really not willing to break a sweat in their mind. So I'm kind of an expert on this stuff. I'm truly a specialist. I don't discuss any of this with people because no matter what, at the conclusion, I always arrive at some type of an aphoretic ending, right? It's just kind of ironic. There's no resolution. They have no interest in a resolution. And all they do is they try and divert and to move their chess pieces off the board. Right? Yeah. So these people that I get into conversations with, they've got no type of like a sophistical type of regimen. I'm not saying that they're stupid people at all. They're very, very intelligent people, but they've got no type of sophistical regimen, way of arguing themselves. They don't even know how to ask good questions. So I'm not interested in people's answers. I'm very interested in people's questions. And you have to be willing essentially to break a sweat in your mind. So if the other person is not willing to break a sweat, you're going to come to a very aphoretic ending. And unless there's going to be a real kind of regimen to the questions, you're just going to wind up they're just going to wind up catching you in kind of the ambiguity of language.
Yeah.
It's all that's going to happen. It's going to be some type of an heuristic, endless loop of them trying to catch the ambiguity of language.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can't engage in it. You have to you can't try and solve the trolley problem. When people are trying to engage you have to be aware of it, and you have to tell them, you have to step aside and you actually have to tell them.
Well, it seems like, you said earlier, like, you might think that I'm a pessimist, but because you were saying that you're an optimist, but there's a big difference between like negative energy and realistic thought, realism. You can be an optimistic realist.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that's more what your vibe is. You're
I love America. I told people with Trump, I don't give a shit about Trump. I told people with Biden, I don't give a shit about Biden. Look, the fastest roll up of power was happening, with Trump, right? And and I knew that it was going to happen a lot faster under Biden. If Hillary was president, it would have happened so fast your head would spin. She would have had TPP in there. She would have had it would have been a wreck. And I don't know if you've ever read any threads, but I write a lot about VAT taxes and Green New Deal because I do a lot.
We don't need to get into the.
Yeah, I do a lot of forensics on it, but nevertheless, I don't really care about that stuff. And I've told people what I care about is Space Force. You've heard me say that, right?
Yep.
I've
Space
cared
Force.
about Greenland. If Biden were to buy Greenland, screw everything else, he would be one of the greatest presidents in American history.
You think
If not,
he would actually do that? I know Trump was trying to do it.
well, the problem is Biden wouldn't. And
He
that's
wouldn't.
a big problem. So I care about policy. Let them do all the BLM and all this other type of stuff. Let them do as much of this fight for Jolie because we're going to lose that battle, right? I disagree with it. I think it creates kind of, I think we're creating a corruption. It's we're corrupting the body of the public with that type of stuff. But we
Yeah.
already know that the world's being turned into a caste system. So we just have to make sure they're not doing that to us and to our family. So I care about acquiring Greenland. If Biden were to do that, I would love it. I'd be like, this is incredible. I care about Space Force.
Yep.
And I don't think he's done a good job of Space Force. I think he's actually, and his spokesperson spoke very poorly of Space Force.
You talking
This is
about Biden
very
right now?
important. It's going to create millions of jobs. So
Yeah, it
they
is.
want to make it green. Now, the problem with green is it affects the distance. It affects how much payload you can carry.
True.
And it also impacts the acquisition of talent, right? You've got to bring in talent. You've got to attract and retain talent. But now if I have an obligation to find this type of person, that type of person, there's a scarcity.
Yeah. Get rid of meritocracy. And it's like, we can't.
Yeah, you have
we got to have the best people on the job.
Well, we need Space Force. It's going to create millions of jobs. And if we don't do it, if we have 1,000 genders kind of in a cislunar orbit, China won't. And it's a war. We are in a war. I care about winning the war. So I told everybody for years, I'm a huge bull on the market. I've been right. I told everybody I don't care whether it's Trump or whether it's Biden. I knew Trump was going to lose. I think you probably know that. It was 100% that he was going to lose. And I was 100% certain he was going to win in 2016. I didn't think the elites would let him get away with it again. That's the mischievousness of the elites.
The shadow cabal, as the Times article said.
I didn't read the Times article. It's in my thing. I didn't read the Darren thing that Darren sent me about that guy Sidnick. That's in my thing. I'm right now. There's just so much. Again, I'm trying not to get lost in the intricacies of my own creation with it. But and it's just very interesting that the mechanisms that they're employing, they're getting kids to really despise whatever's familiar, right? And that was the same thing that they did in China during the social revolutions. Is they were calling it the four olds, where they were tearing down the old rituals. So and instead they're becoming kind of worshippers of every new extravagance. So they just want to put a lot of extravagance in these kids, and they're creating a psycho. They're creating psychopaths. And I did a Periscope with Alan Bukhari, who works for Breitbart News, and with Chuck Pizzeski, who is just a brilliant guy. And he said at some point that they're I forget the way he worded it, and I don't want to misrepresent his language, but he essentially said that they're creating psychopaths, and it's going to be a bad thing. So when I look at Twitter and I look at what everything that's happening, I'm really looking at sucking down information. And one of the things that I've seen on Twitter, particularly with COVID, right, is I see people and I think to myself, I don't interact with them about it, but I know they're wrong. Again, I just don't want to get into the trolley problem with them. But I wish they were as quick in anticipating what is said, and I wish they were a lot slower in foreseeing the consequences. Does that make sense to you?
Definitely. Yeah, everyone's just nobody wants to face reality, and that's really what it is. Adam, we got to get to some super chats. I feel like I know your periscopes tend to go long because you have a very good way of it's like a stream of consciousness. You just kind of go with it just flows out of you. But we definitely got to get to some super chats. I see some interesting questions that we'll probably get to. The first one here is from Commander. Says it's a hefty super chat. Thank you very much, Commander. It says, "Hey Adam, thanks to people like you, I came to the decision today that I plan to run for my House seat in North Dakota next year. I have no clue where to start, but I can't just watch this all happen anymore. As a veteran, I can't stand it. Wish me luck. Your supporter, Anthony Bergen." Thank you so much for that. See, this is the kind of thing that I read that letter. I feel such immense privilege and gratefulness to, people like this. Anthony, thank you very much for that super chat, and I wish you well.
May I offer some unsolicited advice as somebody who's
Please.
funded a lot of campaigns? Just so
to me or to Anthony?
To Anthony.
Anthony, go ahead.
I'm so excited for him. And I funded a lot of campaigns, right? It's all public. I don't really care. I funded a lot of campaigns, a lot of 501c4s. And I think I've known a lot of people who won. I've known a lot of people who lost. I've known a lot of people who've lost one time and then they came back and they won. Everyone from de Blasio to Schneiderman to you just name it, Cuomo. I've worked out with Cuomo, and including Clinton. And so what I will say is what made AOC win, right, is number one, Joe Crowley was, and I'm going to bring up some political names, but let's forget about them for a moment. Joe Crowley was lazy, right? He wasn't going to the Little League games. He wasn't doing that type of stuff. And AOC was getting a lot of engagement. She was getting a lot of intimacy. She was knocking on a lot of doors. She truly was. And they call it retail, I guess, retail politics. I don't know those type of terms. I've known a lot of activists, everybody from Acorn, you name it. I funded them all. So what I would say is you got to knock on a lot of doors. People enjoy that eye contact. And one of the difficulties Hillary Clinton had was she couldn't even transfer that emotional person, right? She's a human being. She's got, this, she carries, her emotions with her, as we all do, but she couldn't transfer that outside of her own environment, while as Trump could, right?
It's stuck in her purse with her hot sauce.
Yeah, but that was so inauthentic, but nevertheless, so just knock on a lot of doors, truly knock on a lot of doors.
Yep. Get in with the people, right?
Forget about social media. Just knock on a lot of doors, and your election is probably going to be decided by. There's probably very few people who are going to vote in the election, so so every vote is kind of consequential, and so you've got to activate them. So good luck, man. I'm excited for you. Let Adam know how it goes, and then Adam will let me know how it goes.
All right, I will. Mark G says, "Are H1Bs the same as 1099s? I feel like H1Bs are their own caste, as they make a good chunk of tech companies and really don't get a chance to leverage their XP due to the visa situation."
Yeah, they're right. It's a very unfortunate situation. Now, I wrote about this within a thread, actually. I wrote about Trump's visit with Modi, Howdy Modi. Or at that time, did they call it? Maybe it was, when Modi was here, I did Hare Krishna with him, right? I did a Maha Mantra with him. Cool. Yeah, cool. And with us all people. When Trump was over there, he didn't have the ability to negotiate that element of it, because he could only do trade. And while within India, it falls within the same kind of jurisdiction, I guess. It's not a part of our trade, so he couldn't negotiate that at all. But so he wasn't going to be a solution to that. But I will tell you, if people know who TriNet is, a lot of people are going to know who TriNet is. TRINET, co-employer. A lot of people know, or Insperity, or JustWorks, whatever it is. I'm very familiar with it, and it's extremely unfair. It's unfair for so many different reasons, and it's so easy for people with wealth to actually even cheat the system. Because I've known people from Pakistan and from India that to show some type of wealth in their bank account, they'll just borrow $40,000 for a VIG, show it to the government, come here, give it all back. It's an unfair system, and it has hurt the tech kids, because it's become a monopoly that those kids, there's a small pool of employers that get access to that reservoir of talent, and they're getting way below wages. So that is going to be a problem. And I don't think the tech kids right now, I hate to say white tech kids, but it's kind of true. I don't think they realize too much what they're advocating for. That FWD.US, they always ask me for money with that, Facebook's thing. Facebook, despite all the rhetoric, is very aware of, arbitraging human capital. They're not stupid. They know how to improve. They know how to improve earnings. So I do think it's something people are very serious issue. The different classes of visas. There's a whole bunch of them. That there's some significant problems, and I could discuss them, but I won't. But really, it's a mess. Nobody who understands H-1B in different classes will tell you it's a functioning system.
Now there you go.
And unfortunately, Trump couldn't do anything about it. And right now, it's kind of a monopoly. That's a cartel. It's a cartel, right? Because only a few companies have that availability of that human capital.
Yeah. American B Savage says 2v2 match, death match. Potato head heels up versus Trump Brobert. Only rule: no outside interference. Winner gets the presidency. Really, Potato and heels up obviously is the administration there. I don't think that's going to happen, American. But interesting to imagine, though. Friendly Neighborhood Sawyer says, I see beyond. I see myself one with Crigler whiskey. I don't know if you know, I have my own coffee business. I started Crigler Coffee. It's still really delicious. I don't know if you drink coffee or not, but I have a whiskey bottle behind me here. That's actually Crigler and Crigler whiskey. Now, this was back in 1880 to about 1906. We were the #1 whiskey company in America, the Crigler family, back in the day. So 130 years ago, yeah, we were the ones who sold whiskey to government hospitals for top quality
How do
pure
I buy
whiskey.
it? How do I buy it?
Wait, we can't buy it anymore. It's no longer a thing. But people have been talking to me about maybe getting the Crigler.
What books on the shelves? What books are those?
What books do I got? This is my songbooks throughout the years. I have all of my songs that I've written throughout the history of my music writing career, I guess. So yeah, I keep them there as a reference because sometimes a lot of those pages have like 4 lines on them, but it's like a really strong idea that I might be like, you know what, I wrote something that could fit in this song, and I'll go back and
That's awesome. That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah, it's good. I like to have them as a close at hand. Brewmaster Monk says, yo, Adam and Adam, is there a way to quantify and measure complexity?
I'd have to understand what they mean by complexity, because
Right.
when you think of complexity, we're probably thinking of different things. When I think of complexity right now, right, and that's just because of how engaged I am in kind of this fastest roll-up of power in history, right, is I think of in terms of how I'm observing epicycles being created to increase the complexity and to baffle the casual experts.
Yeah.
So I think of complexity a little bit different. So I don't know. I can be
hard to answer that. Yeah, it's hard to answer that. Let's see. Brewmaster again says, speaking about space, albino midgets are going out compete everyone due to needing less calories and being very sensitive to sunlight. Is that are you just making a random observation? Maybe there's some truth in that. I don't know. Noni, thank you for that super chat. Ribs Exposed says, in understanding our own weakness, we understand the weakness of others and be amazed by another's strength and wish to possess it ourselves. And maybe be inspired by it also. I feel like it's all about who's holding that awareness.
Well, let's look at that right now. Let's look at it right now, right? Let's put our stamp on what that person just said, because it's extremely thoughtful.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
Right now, we're seeing a loss of freedoms, and you're not aware of it because you're locked up. Biden just had 52 executive orders. We know the world is being changed as we're locked up. That's a given. So we're seeing these lost freedoms, and we're being asked to brave and to suffer it rather than to do something. Yep. Right. So we're making the world feel. What the person said is very thoughtful. So I'm going to contemplate a little bit. Very thoughtful.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Brewmaster Monk says, ask Townsend what he thinks of the Unabomber. It's random question, but
not a random question.
You know much about him?
I don't. I've been told I should really I should read his manifesto.
The manifesto. So I've watched a documentary about him, and there's a movie that was actually made about him, and it was very well done. And I don't know. I didn't read the manifesto, but he warns us about what's going on right now. So I know enough that he talks about the power, us losing our freedoms, and tech oligarchies, and it's kind of an eerie window into the future when he would, I don't know, when was it, in the 70s or something? I don't, or maybe 80s. But what we're seeing now, I mean, you'll actually, people have told you to read it because you'll be probably amazed at the similarities of what is actually happening to what he was basically trying to warn people what could happen if we keep going down this path of what
I'm
we've
very
been.
distrustful of technology. I think very, very soon uh, that I joke about it, but I'm not really joking. When I do my periscopes, I actually have to check to make sure I'm live, and that's because I think of it as hygiene, right? And
Yeah.
I think there's going to come a time where my thing can say live, but I'm really not live. I just have the appearance of being live, and I could be communicating with bots and not having an awareness of it. But then I think there's going to be other issues as well, which is going to be there's going to be two versions of books, right? So we're both going to be reading Great Expectations. Mine is going to be pristine.
Yeah.
Yours won't be, and we'll never be able to make a comparison between the two. So I
Interesting.
really should read it. Yeah, it's a good thought.
Yeah.
You have good
Yo,
people
shout
asking.
out to my chat because I have a significantly awesome following. Everyone who shows up for me, they're smart, they're aware, they are questioning. They want to figure things out. They want to, at least this is what I've gathered from the amazing super chats that they've that you yourself have now seen.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable because I've watched, right. I've got two monitors here,
Yeah,
and I'm watching one of them on I'm watching the comments, and I'm watching you here.
yeah,
So I see some really good comments. It's pretty cool.
yeah. I try not to look at chat unless I'm at the end of the interview. Once we get into the goods of the super chats, then I kind of pull the chat up.
Yeah.
Robert Wiles says Steven Crowder got locked out of his account today. I put the info on locals. Have a blessed night and life, Adam. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. Got locked out of his Twitter account or YouTube account. Either way, I'm not surprised at all. Steven Crowder is very blunt about calling people out and being, based, as they say.
But
So
does he use poor language?
I can't recall. I know he's just very bold in if he uses poor language or not. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about who he calls out. Gretchen Whitmore for her, terrible abuse of power.
People have
And
to learn how to word things, right? We're at a time, people are used to the way the old people operating system. You have to now imagine yourself in Renaissance times, and you have to imagine Twitter and your social engagements as a kind of a painting that you're giving to the prince.
yeah,
However, giving to Machiavelli, let's say you're Botticelli or something, right? You
yeah,
have to think of yourself as very cleverly, right, putting in some image within it that the prince is going to neglect, and his examiners, I guess, whoever cuts the checks, are going to neglect, but will have historical significance that will mean something, right?
mm.
So people now have to also have that awareness that we have to be much clever in the way we insert these messages, and so there's a way for a person to be adversarial without having to be bombastic.
I think it depends on how much of a platform you have. Like, look at what happened with Gina Carano. She wasn't. If you go and look at her posts, I post very similar things. I call out the hypocrisy in the government. I call out the ridiculousness in the election.
You have nothing to lose.
Okay, I suppose that's true. She had a contract on a Disney show, so she did have something to lose, and
Listen, when the world is going crazy, when there's the Overton window and we're going through social revolution,
okay,
uh, if you say something, the world thinks you're an asshole. So just keep your mouth shut. It's all you can do is kind of wait it out, and again, just make sure you don't suffer it. So she
yeah,
really wasn't contributing in any artistic type of way, nor was it particularly profound. She's not Aristotle, not Socrates. She's making an observation that we all know,
yeah.
and we all know the resolution to that is going to compromise her. She's already very vulnerable. Why create the volatility? She's got nothing to gain from it. So now you have to paint these little Renaissance paintings and kind of insert it in that way. And in fact, I was just speaking with a very famous movie director. He's got a new movie coming out. So excited about it. And I don't want to give, I don't want to give him too characteristics where he can kind of be figured out, but the properties of the person where he can be figured out or any of his movies. But they were very aware of this, and they're a liberal person, but they're very aware of the way they have to do these little cross stitches within the fabric of their upcoming movie. And it's
a big part of me. So a big part of me wants to say you're wrong and be like, I don't agree, but I can't. I agree. I think you're right. I think there is a point where you have to, and people give Tim Pool a lot of shit for this, basically, because they're like, well, you're censoring yourself. You're giving in to YouTube because you're not speaking out as much as you could, as you even say. He even says it like, look, I want to say some stuff, but I'm not going to because I don't want to get banned. And it's like, people don't understand. He has something to lose. If he lost that platform that he has,
he's matured a lot. He's matured a lot, and I watched it because I was enraged. And we're going to do another one of these because we got to discuss what I want to talk about. But I watched his interview on Joe Rogan with Twitter, and
with Jack.
He was buffoonish, and I want to be honest. He came
really
there buffoonish. He came there so unprepared, so ill-equipped that he wanted to come there and make these statements about, well, you kick this person off, and Jack Dorsey and his lawyer were like, well, that person said this and that person said that, and then there was nothing left to talk about. So in advance of that, Tim Pool, because he's very loved, right? People genuinely really like him. Apparently, he's he's a very good guy, and he's really he has an emotional connection with a lot of people and intellectual. So we know some of the same people. So in advance, he should have spoken with lawyers and been more equipped to have a more challenging and where there would be more intellectual interplay with, with Twitter, with Jack and with Jack
and lawyer. I don't remember her name.
Particularly as at that time, Twitter was really beefing up their safety council, and they were putting some really radical people. Some radical people were already there, and they were the organizations that were included within it. They should have been. There should have been some type of, again, intellectual interplay going on between Tim and Jack, and I think Jack really just bullied him, and nothing was accomplished. And they knew at that point that was the last chance at bat. They picked him because that was their last chance at bat, and I was correct. They were not challenged. Now, if Tim Pool in advance had spoken with Robert Barnes, had spoken with a lawyer who's more equipped with First Amendment and 230 and other type of stuff, I think Jack and his lawyer would have appreciated the engagement, because I've been there. Jack is not a stupid guy. They want that type of mind sweat. Tim Pool had no mind sweat.
Interesting. Well, I mean, if you feel like you're bringing up a whole different conversation, because I was just talking about him censoring himself because
our kid,
just painting a picture, like you said, for that the prince will appreciate, but not see the fine print of the masses will see and be like, whoa.
I've watched the show a couple of times because Will Chamberlain's been there, and Will and I are friends, and he's done a lot with Jack Murphy, and Jack is just such a wonderful person.
Jack's awesome. Shout out to Jack Murphy.
Smart, man.
Yeah, he is.
He's reading, and he's just having great interviews, and his interviews are very Charlie Rose-like. The guy is really getting good. And so I watched Tim Pool, a couple of his things. He now truly understands. You bring on experts, you kind of interrogate the experts, and you draw out their wealth of information. You can make your kind of social commentary into it, but he's really good at that now. And I've watched his use of words. Okay. I have a big awareness of words. I watched the questions he poses. He's gotten very smart, and he went to YouTube before people knew that Twitter was cutting off that valve, because Twitter.
Well, he did kick off one of his best co-hosts ever. So I'm just giving him some shit. I don't watch Tim's show anymore. I was on it and now I'm not on it. So it's just kind of I like to poke fun whenever I can.
I don't want to be an interloper because I know you guys have a relationship, and it is what it is.
No, I give my friends the worst out of it all. So
But
let's see.
he did a smart thing.
That's
People,
debatable.
but intelligence expresses itself in many different ways, and in his way is much different than mine. My way is extremely cognitive, and kind of the cognition is here, but some of the social is really down here, right? So,
Okay.
and his intelligence is a bit different. Even his relationships that he's had is a type of intelligence, right? And after that engagement he did on Joe Rogan, I was DMing people, and I was like, "This guy's an idiot, true idiot. Who the heck?" He gets that opportunity, and he just wants to ask why they kicked off some crackpot. They kicked off the crackpot because the guy was a crackpot. He tried to hijack the system. So, but the people that I spoke with were very supportive of him. They said, "No, listen, he's a good guy. He was just a little bit out of it. He's a good guy." That's a certain type of intelligence.
Paul Hurtado, thank you for becoming a member. I really appreciate that. That Walking Fish says you should play The Forge for Adam. Seems really relevant to what he was talking about. I'm not going to play it, but I will tell you about a new song that I wrote. It's called The Forge, and essentially it alludes to life being the forge, and you are the hammer, and you are also the metal, and life is going to burn you. Everyone gets burned. It's deciding on how you mold yourself. You choose how you're accountable for your actions. You have to recognize that your decisions are your decisions, and you have to be okay with them because you made them. No one else made those decisions. So that's what that song's about. So it's a good song.
It sounds beautiful.
Yeah, I tune in Friday nights. I do. Usually, I play a bunch. Half of my Friday shows are basically a jam session, just because I like jamming out. So it's fun. Jason Dixon, who actually got me this wonderful antique hotel bell. That's what I've been. Anytime someone becomes a member, I ding the bell. Jason Dixon says, "Adam, I'm not getting notifications on your stream." This has been happening basically since the right as the election started getting hot and heavy. I guess it's still happening. Nothing I can really do about it, and that's one of the downfalls of YouTube.
Lately, it's happening a lot. I have noticed, because I get notifications on you also, and I get notifications on probably about 20 people. Ron Coleman, some bitch, just about, but also my meditation stuff. My devotional music and whatever it is. Haven't been getting notifications. It's kind of weird.
Interesting. So even just like motivational music, it's not political. It's not anything. It's just the notification system in general.
Yeah, it's very odd. And in fact, I even reached out to a person who's well known on his YouTube, and I was like, "Listen, I just want to let you know this. I'm not getting anything."
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to. The only thing I could do is just keep moving forward, and keep doing my show. Brewmaster Monk again says we are becoming solipsistic because of the lack of reality testing. The events / attitudes we use to engage in assertive mating have been subverted and disrupted by technology and secret cabals. That's a hot take. Yeah, solipsistic. That's a new word. What is the definition of that? You've used it a couple times tonight.
So let's
break that down.
The way they actually kind of utilized it was actually very good, because that's what it is. It's a person whose entire reality is themselves.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
So yeah. So we're becoming that. The reality is all us. In a sense.
No, I didn't say it's not all us. That's just what the person said. The reality is not all us. The reality is me. And that's why you can have a plurality of languages and even a plurality of genders, because everybody just exists to themselves.
Yeah.
But that's what, the person was suggesting with a mating and everything like that, very interesting.
Subverted and disrupted. Yeah. All right. Interesting. I'm gonna read that super chat again, because it makes more sense now. We are becoming solipsistic because of the lack of reality testing. The events, attitudes we use to engage in assortive mating have been subverted and disrupted by technologies and secret cabals. It's
So can you ask that person a question? What is a
I think Brewmaster is still here. Go ahead.
what do they conceive of with a reality test?
Yeah, Brewmaster, if you're still, just tag me in the chat and just with your response, and I'll look out for it.
Yeah, and kind of what I'm asking is not just a test, right? I'm asking in the same spirit as the person is generously giving us. I'm asking kind of for the conceptual framework because I understand there's it's a difficult question.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll come back to that. Spanky says, I tip so hard for a Bryson and Carlin show. I may try to make that happen because I know that there's some friction between those two. So maybe. Again, Spanky says, I cannot properly cook cream of wheat. Someone help. Nothing I could do about that from here. Chef de jour says, Coca-Cola is racist. Choose the product of Texas, Dr. Pepper. They have so many flavors: Sunkist, Crush, A&W Root Beer. Texas does it better. You know, I stopped drinking soda. I don't really even drink soda.
Here's the problem.
Go ahead.
Last year, I forget when it was, and maybe it was 2018, the end of it. Again, I cataloged that as well. But there was the toxic male. Remember that toxic male thing? And it was by Gillette. The same time that Gillette was doing toxic male, their offices, I think it's Unilever or Procter & Gamble. It's Procter & Gamble, were being raided in 3 other countries. Just so you know, for tax evasion and for using improper tax inversions and where you're hunting tax treaties and you're kind of arbitraging, the tax treaties, the Irish Dutch type of thing. So for improper use of tax inversions, they were getting raided at the same time in South America, and I think it was in Spain. And here they are telling us toxic male. So I went out and sought an alternative, and there is none.
Interesting.
What do you have? Do you have a couple of different? You have
a straight razor.
You have shit. Yeah, but the straight razors are also made, by the same people. So you have shit, and you've got like shave of the month or shave of the week type of thing.
Right.
Shave Club, which isn't a solution either because their provider is still the same people.
Interesting.
They're just private labeling and cranking it out.
Brewmaster Monk just got back and said, reality testing to me is the scientific method and authentic interactions with the world that change and grow our perspective.
So what they're saying is it's going to get a lot worse.
Basically,
all those empathy kind of connections.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just giving the veneer of it, right? But it's we are definitely missing the empathy connections.
Yes, we are, and that's a big shame. Born Again says, does Adam mentor people like he was mentored? If so, where to sign up?
No, I don't.
Good question.
Look, I get asked this question a lot. And
check out his website, everyone. If you have, look, I got it pulled up right here.
No, all I put there,
AdamTownsend.me. It still gives you a little insight into.
Well, scroll down, because forget that one. That one was just a thing. Forget that one. Here's where it gets very interesting, because here I get a chance to talk about finance, which is really which is really what I enjoy more. And so my family office, we create very kind of intricate type of things because we're interested in finance and we're making investments. But I try and distill it for the enjoyment of everybody else. So I was just in Bolivia. Go back to that post. I was just in Bolivia, and I shared with everybody.
I love what you do. Did you do this yourself? Did you draw this?
I didn't.
Have someone do that?
No, these are just like apps that I use.
Oh, okay. I think it's cool. I like that though.
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting. So that article, that one was where I just distilled some Thomas Sowell, where he did.
He's great.
What was it called? The Anointed, and he did kind of a retrospective on anointed ones who have come before. And again, they're anti-consequentialism. I don't know if he used that word. I think that was a person who's giving me guidance on philosophy. But I'm going to tell everybody, I do appreciate that opportunity. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
And
and follow him on all. So down below, actually, you'll find his Twitter, you'll find his YouTube page, and then of course the website here.
I don't pay attention to YouTube. So let me answer the person's question because it's a
Sure.
very
Actually, yo, why don't you answer it? Go ahead.
So I get this question a lot, and I was not only in offering in asking me, but also how to, right? How do you acquire a mentor? So my parents, I was a nuclear explosion, right? So a nuclear explosion has to be channeled, or else it's destructive, right? Or they kept it in a small containment and then they burst. And I realized that I was a nuclear explosion, that I needed to be properly channeled. I sought out mentors. I needed kind of surrogate parents, and I understood the exchange. The exchange was, I have an obligation to you, and they've got an obligation to me. So let's discuss a little bit of the obligation, because you have to have an awareness of it, right? And Reese, I've had a few mentors, and they're still with me. Unfortunately, I lost Reese's body. Miss him very much. So his obligations to me was not just his availability, and it really wasn't just his advice, because the cause of ill-timed or bad advice is the cause of much human suffering. So I can't say that it was really his advice. It was his availability, of course. And he was never in my industry, which also made it even better, because he was far removed from kind of the intrigues of an office environment. But I sought him out because I saw he had operational excellence, and I was building out big companies, and I needed that. But I also needed that emotional gain, because when you're at the start of your life, right? Your high school, college, but certainly your professional life, it's like the beginning of a chess game, right? And there's lots of available moves, and if you make bad moves along the way, you can recover from them. Your opponent's going to make mistakes, and the game works out, right? It's a game of inches. However, later on in the game, there's you have less available options, and the significance of each move is much greater, right? And then as you progress in the game, every single poorly thought out play, or not even poorly thought out play, but every single play has you're kind of calculating hundreds of different iterations, right? They're going to do this, they're going to do that. So you're going kind of plies deep in your head, right? As you make that consideration. So you might be making the wrong thing, and that mistake has an outcome, right? And that mistake, there's every move you make has a certain probability, of an outcome. So I sought mentors because I needed that also emotionally. I needed a person that I could be a nuclear explosion with, but that would help channel me, that would help tame me, because I needed that, and would help channel me so that I understood. And he was helping me particularly with the operation of building out a really big company, but I understood it like a Rubik's Cube. But I also understood my engagement with an emotional engagement in the business like a Rubik's Cube also. So he was really, really great. Operational genius. He gave me the best advice I ever got. Reese gave me the best advice I ever had. But so from him, let's be honest about what he did. He took all of his mind, right? And he essentially put it on paper. He transferred everything that was in his mind, now had to cross the transom to me, right? So think how difficult it is to just have regular social engagements with your family and friends, where you have to take an effort. Just, I don't want to say it this way to this person. And, you have to make these considerations of how you're going to phrase things depending on who it is and everything else, and the gentleness or the harshness and, what that means. Now, and all your business experience. If somebody were to say to you, and I'm going to say to you on our next YouTube, how do I do this, right? Now you've got to take everything in your mind and transfer it. You've got to take everything in your mind and essentially write it down. That hurts. Do you understand? That actually hurts the mind. That's not an easy thing to do. You think it's easy because you're like, I can just do it. No, it's not easy. I'm not talking about little one-liners. It's not just do this, do that. I'm talking about real practical in this case, operational excellence. Okay. Which also means it does include some of the intrigues, which is you have to find an advocate within certain organizations and how to do that and how to speak. So, but it's excruciatingly painful to take what's in your mind, 50 years of what's in your mind, and all of those experiences and all of those interactions and all of those transactions, and now have it cross the transom, transfer it to another person. So Reese in that instance, well, throughout our relationship, that's what he was giving me, right? And he made it look effortless. Okay. But and what I did was be appreciative and understand his extraordinary effort. And in his last years, as he was declining and he began to suffer Alzheimer's, I used to go over to his house at least once a week and read him books about himself. I'd read Ted and Me Against the World, right? Which is what he wrote, explaining kind of the formation of CNN. I would read the books about Ted Turner. They were close. We would talk about Ted Turner's girlfriends. We would discuss the Food Network, and I would have to read him things about himself.
Yeah. No, what was his name? Your mentor?
Reese Schonfeld.
Reese Schonfeld.
Oh, I love Reese. SCH. Yeah, I think his book. I always keep his book around me. Look, his book is right here.
Me and Ted Against the World. CNN.
Let me tell you something. CNN. A lot of people are going to be too young. CNN changed the world. People think of it as this shit little thing that it is now. It's a little psyop now. I don't watch news, but it is what it is, right? As
certainly has changed over the years.
It's, as that person might say, it's an inadequate reality test. Okay, so but CNN in its time changed the world. Do you understand that they were getting military intelligence before the Pentagon was?
Wow, I didn't know that.
The CIA and the Pentagon actually had satellites. They had a direct link to CNN because CNN was getting all the surveillance from all their places. CNN was there. The stories I've heard, I mean, I can just tell you.
When did CNN become a thing? What year was that?
It started in 1979.
1979, okay.
It launched in 1980.
Wow.
And Reese co-founded it with Ted. And then his former boss from years before was a guy by the name of Dan Burston. And when Reese when Reese was the CEO of CNN, he hired his old boss. And then when Reese left, he designated Dan Burston as his replacement, as the new CEO. And I speak occasionally with Dan's daughter. I mean, these are exceptional people. People. But
how did you find them in the first place?
I sought him. So Nancy and I,
what is that?
We give
in the paper, New York Times, when you were looking for a job, like what?
No. So Nancy and I went to a fundraiser. I think it was for the Center for Investigative Reporting, and he was there with Cy Hirsch and some other people. And when I heard he was the co-founder of CNN, because people are like, do you know who you're talking to? I was appreciative of his time, right? Because I'm not his peer, right? I could be worth $1 billion. I'm not going to found CNN.
Yeah.
You are not Mark Zuckerberg's peer. You are never going to build a Facebook. You are not Tom Cruise's peer. You're never going to have be America's greatest actor. You're not Elon Musk. So the first thing is I recognize that I'm not dealing with a peer. I have to be very respectful of my language, very aware of what I'm saying to them, and have an emotional appeal to them. So I said, look, it's great. I'm doing this in my life right now. And I proposed going for a dinner. So, we went for a dinner with, always do it with your significant other, right? The emotional connection really happens when you do it with your significant other.
If you have one.
If you don't, acquire one, right? It's part of the exchange. Just bring one along, like rent a runway, just bring one along. Oh, because if you're an obsessive guy about business, they're an obsessive person, which is they're going to be, because that's the person you're seeking out. 99 times out of 100, the wife's not going to be like that. My wife is always very calm. She's very successful. She has a large company, different type of personality, different type of ambitions, different ways of expressing it, different types of happiness and contentment. My baseline is it doesn't make a difference, but her communication skills. So we went on a double date. We went for a dinner. Loved each other, right? But it was really the women who bonded. And I understood that. But I wanted him as a mentor. I really wanted him as a mentor. So I continue to encourage the women to bond, because Pat, Reese's wife, Pat O'Gorman, is still one of my wife's best friends, if not even her best friend. And Pat is 87 years old now. They're still best friends. And they just had this emotional connection. They understood each other. And Pat is like, she's awesome. And they just understood each other. They both understood each other. And that allowed Reese and I to trust each other more, because if our spouses trust each other, they're going to trust us, right? So, so we just went for a lot of, dinners. Then I said, let's go to a Broadway show. And I got the tickets. I arranged for them to be picked up.
What was the name of the show? What show did you go see?
I think I went to a burlesque show with them.
All right. Not what I was expecting to hear, but okay.
No. People are human, right? I'm not trying to deceive myself. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
I'm going to go to something. I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to take them to an opera or something. I don't like opera. But at that point, I was very engaged in deception of myself. So it was probably just because the burlesque thing sounded a lot funner. So we went to the burlesque thing. His wife couldn't make it. So Reese and I just went. And we just had a great time. I mean, neither one of us are lascivious people. We had a great time. We understood you can appreciate something and then walk away from it. We loved it. Nancy didn't want to see it. Pat didn't want to see it. And then we just kept on. And he understood as my business, because I was like, this is what's happening to me. This is what's happening to me. And he would give me great advice, and I wouldn't always listen to his advice. But bad advice itself, unsolicited advice, is the cause of much human suffering. None of the advice he gave me was unsolicited. I was actually asking for it, and I understood the impermanence of good advice, which is also something that's important. Good advice yesterday is not good advice tomorrow. So Reese and I just became, look at all the effort. You think it's easy. You think it's easy because you hear people writing books. I'm writing a book about manhood or how to get a baby. That's stupid shit, right? I could do that at the gym, right? That's nothing. I'm talking about the wealth of somebody who has been there, done that for 40 years.
Yeah.
Taking that out of their head is really difficult. And they've got to really trust you, because they're like, I'm going to do this extraordinary emotional effort. I'm going to give birth. I want to know that child is going to happily receive this. And so when he was passing, I used to read him from his own book. And then there are lots of articles about, the Food Network. I would call up Lou Dobbs. I say, look, Lou, this is what's happening. I called up Patrick Buchanan. I said, Pat, this is what's happening. I called up Ted Turner. I said, Ted, I'm none of their peers. I'm not Lou Dobbs's peer. I've acquired some wealth, but he's Lou Dobbs, right? So I was also very appreciative. I said, this is what's happening. His mental health is deteriorating. Ted and him made peace. They wrote each other beautiful letters. Pat was really appreciative because Ted, Reese created Crossfire. Everybody, I called up Chef Emerald. I called up all these people, and I brought them to Reese. Okay. And a sad feature of my life is that in his last few months in COVID times, I thought his children were visiting him regularly, and they weren't. So I thought they live in Midtown. They live in a duplex. They live. And I thought the kids were visiting him regularly, and they weren't. So when I found out, I was absolutely devastated. I was devastated. I love Reese. But kids are assholes. So I was not that asshole. I was better than a son because I went there. So you got to seek them out, man. You are not going to succeed in life these days without a mentor. The work environment is too competitive. It's not only is it hyper competitive, but we're living in a caste system. So the strata is much more difficult for a person to get social and economic mobility, and it's just going to be more pronounced.
Humans have gotten around by passing on knowledge, right? So finding the person that does and is successful doing what you are interested in doing. You have to find these people out. If you really want to be successful, find those people.
Okay, but look, there was a time when people could be in the elevator with Mark Zuckerberg and now have a great relationship with him. Mark Zuckerberg is an absentee landlord. Jeff Bezos hasn't set foot in Amazon, I can tell you, maybe once or twice. The guy lives in Texas in this huge freaking ranch. So, you don't have the availability, the accessibility of a lot of these people anymore. And again, we're fragmented society, so you really have to seek these people out, but you have to pursue them like French Connection. It's like a car chase these days. But in a hyper competitive world where we're building up a caste system, the only way for you to be able to cross those chasms and continue to progress as we get into intra elite squabbles, which is where we're going now, is because there's a scarcity of elites, and it's elites are inelastic, right? There's a scarcity to them. So they're all going to be squabbling with each other. So in order for you to break out, you're going to need a mentor. There's no way to do it without a mentor.
Clearly, Born Again, I got a lot more than just simply trying to be your, mentee. I guess, was that how you say it? I'm not sure, but
it is. Mentee is a perfectly good Scrabble word.
Yeah, very nice. White Lasagna said, "Is this an Adams Cast episode?" Yes, accurate.
That's
accurate.
Awesome.
Yeah. Brewmaster Monk, here we go, says, "You guys should read Be Like the Fox, Machiavelli in His World by Erica Benner, excuse me." Interesting.
I don't read any of that stuff, and let me tell you why. Let me tell you exactly why. Hold on.
Watch, he's going to pull that book out and show us.
Why would I want to read a kind of derivative?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you had the book. I was saying.
I study Machiavelli. He's my favorite political scientist. I don't want to read this kind of interpretation of him and let's apply it to fancy times. The only time I really enjoy that is with I've read lots of books on. I've read Thucydides many times, and I've also read even more about him.
What'd you just pull out here? What's this book here?
This is one of my favorite books of all time, which everybody should read. Let me see if I can get it out here.
A little higher, yeah.
Discourse on Livy.
The
light's very bright. Whenever I try and look up to you, I'm squinting. So I'm trying.
That's all right.
Yeah. So Discourse on Livy. So it's much better than The Prince. Much better than The Prince, because what he's doing is he's taking Roman history, and he's taking the characters of Roman history and the dilemmas of Roman history, and what happened, the particulars of that time, and he's synthesizing it and saying this was the problem, this is how they encountered it, and this is kind of a strategy, not a recreation of those moments, because that can't happen, right? You can only step in the same stream once, right? But looking at kind of the way Scott Adams looks at, he's very, very good at kind of doing postmortems on ideas. He'll take an idea and then he'll say, well, this is the idea. Let's twist it around this way and see how this works. And he's very good at that, right? Mm-hmm. Machiavelli is even better. And he does it political with the history of Rome and of Roman times. And there's just a lot of characters in it, and you're going to love it. And so don't read the derivatives. Read Thucydides, right?
Read the real stuff.
And then it's going to be a little bit difficult. So then you go back, not because it's a difficult book, but there's a lot of characters in it. Then go back and do the great courses that Kenneth Harl did, and then go back and read the book again. Then read Victor Davis Hanson, go back and read the book again. You're always going to take something new. None of this is new. None of the morphing and mutations of language is new. None of it. All this has happened before.
Yeah. Wow. Let's see. Chapter Master Dante says, "Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I don't know if I would agree with that, though. I think about that type of stuff. I don't know, because I think I think people are conditioned to suffer, and I don't think that's wise that people are being conditioned to suffer. I think exactly the opposite. I think people should be much more Homeric and have a lot more kind of virtue. So,
well, I mean, so the opposite would be pray for an easy life. Don't pray for the strength to endure a difficult one.
Yeah, I don't know. I got to think about that, because I don't know. I think
something about it throws you off.
Well, we have to take a look at kind of the actuals, right? We take a look at politicians that kind of use this, and I'm switching to my other monitor right now because this one went out of battery. So, but we have to look at the actuals, the appearance of religion, right? And then we have to look at the actual practice of it, because they're two different things.
Well, I
So
don't know if this is necessarily bringing religion into this, because it's like, what does it mean to pray? To me, it's to, you know, put put an idea into the air that you want to have happen for yourself. So I think to pray to each person is a little different, but
when last time you prayed?
uh, well, that what does praying mean? Like
But you use that as an example.
well, I mean, so what I wanted was to, you know, the last time I prayed, I don't really, I don't know. It's a
Well, so
like,
I believe in religions. I think it's extremely important for society, and perhaps this person would agree with me that
mm,
I don't I don't evaluate in terms of a people operating system, right? I don't evaluate. And now let's look at the kind of the big system. I'm gonna have to switch monitors in a second, but for a people operating system, right, where
mhm,
we're having an assault, right, against religion, just an absolute assault. Everybody knows it. It's an absolute assault. People aren't allowed to go to churches. They're being criticized and all the things that they said in congressional hearings, the dogmas with you, whatever. But so in a people operating system, right, you need to have you evaluate a religion by not by its truth content. Right? That's you don't want to do that, but for its consequences on a society. Does that make sense to you? So
mhm,
you're looking at it two different ways now. So now what's being suggested is that I'm being asked to be brave and to suffer rather than to do. And this is what's happening with COVID right now. I don't want to be freaking brave. I don't want to suffer. I want people to do because we're making the world feebler by suffering and being brave. We're being asked to bear injuries rather than to avenge them.
yeah, interesting. Now looking back at this quote, it's like I could see that. It's like, why should we live life that way when we could live life better in a better way?
I think about this stuff a lot. I really
Yeah,
do. I think
I
about
see
it
it.
a lot.
That's good. This I'm gonna skip this one super chat to this last. Oh no, this one right here. IWD just says, "I'm curious as to how your guest can be so optimistic when scholasticism it was one of the social manias that preceded the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, China, and Europe in general in the 20th century."
Well, because you mentioned China, and I'm a certain specialist on certain things, and I have a
Right.
really deep familiarity with it. Let me just say something that should be said with more frequency, but the media, goes for the bigger check, and the media can't rely on subscribers anymore because it's very difficult to forecast these days. With people boycotting everything, the media can't reliably forecast revenue and project revenue when everyone's boycotting each other, right? You can't. So there's a lot of volatility to your earnings. So they're like, China's giving me money, trying to pay them above market rates, and they broadcast and diffuse a lot of Chinese propaganda. Chinese is a much more unstable socially and economically than the U.S. You just don't see it. So the mainland is really suffering. I want you to have an awareness of that. So in the US, I'm extremely bullish because I'm not nostalgic. I don't think it was that great before, right? I didn't learn the way it was before. I just didn't have Black Lives Matter and white fragility and all that nonsense. But I understand that as nonsense. And I think politically we all understand that as nonsense. And they're creating a caste system in front of us. They're creating I think he goes by the last refugee too on Twitter. Sundance Conservative Treehouse sent me a message after Lee Smith. I did a Periscope with Lee Smith. Lee Smith wrote a great article called "The 30 Tyrants," and it's about what we're going through now. And then I did a Periscope with him, and somebody asked, "Do you think they want us to know?" And Lee Smith, because they're not wearing masks and they're doing all this type of stuff, he says they want us to know. That's the whole point. They want us to know. So I know, right? So if I know that they're creating a classist system, I want to be on the other side of the classist system, right? I want to be on the better side of it, right?
Yeah.
So on that side of it, it's going to be freaking great. Are you kidding me? Awesome. People are going to be living in space. People are going to be living in cislunar orbit. Millions of new jobs in hospitality. Hundreds of thousands of people living on the moon and mineral wealth and just new energies, entire new systems of commerce. It's just a beautiful thing. So I'm very excited. I don't really think about, I see that Biden is, doing what Biden does. And I anticipate, kind of, and I've thought about this a lot. And I used to tweet this, right? I was tweeting this in March that we nevertheless, but I kind of disengage emotionally from the politics. And that's very helpful. And you should try and do the same. And so if you,
Not easy.
but you have to do it.
Yeah.
So then that's what you have to, in your daily planner, you have to be able to observe that in your own behavior. You can't just rely on yourself saying, well, I did it again, because you're only going to capture 3 of the 10 times that you do it, right? You've got to have a daily planner. Forget about what time you brush your teeth, all that type of stuff. But what time I got out of bed, I have to watch my depression, right? That's what I have to watch, because I know where a certain base level is. And when I get to that, I've got to do a check, and maybe I'll go on vacation, read new books. Sometimes I just have to get out of bed earlier, which is usually the case, right? But then on your daily planner, on that part of it, page 2, right? You put don't go into the trolley problem. That's a big part of it. You got to put that, the trolley problem. So, and mine, the one that saved my life was, am I deceiving myself? Do I feel depressed? Right? Because I was very depressed. I didn't feel my life had a purpose at that time. I felt I had burnt myself out, and I didn't know what to do now that I had free time. So that was the one that saved my life. But I would say that I've done a million iterations of it. If one of them for a person was I engaged in this trolley problem? Was I listening to people? Did I become a participant in a trolley problem? Did I become a participant in kind of a Saw? You know those movies, Saw, Jigsaw?
Yeah, I've seen the first.
People would wake up and they're like being tortured, right? And he would conceive of new ways to cause pain to people. That's what the trolley problem is, right? So did I become a participant in this? And one of them has to be to emotionally disengage from politics. You have to emotionally disengage. So when you say, how am I bullish? I'm extremely bullish on America. Look at the markets. Look at the markets. How can you not? How can you not be bullish? Look at Space Force. Look at what Elon Musk is doing.
I mean, even to just join into the markets, though, you have to have some sort of amount of money that you're willing to, or that you can simply invest. Before COVID, most Americans couldn't afford a $400 swing in like an emergency situation.
You buy one share of Boeing. When Boeing was at $100, I was literally DMing hundreds of people. I have a list; it's like 600 people. DMing them individually. Buy some stocks, please. In March, you got to buy this market, because I want people to be successful. Even if it's buying one share of a stock, just buy one share, because you're emotionally conditioning yourself, your behavior, the way you perceive tomorrow. I did a Periscope, Nancy did it, where the investor series was about the benefits of music and meditation and Krishna Das, and she did the Hanuman Chalisa and Nina Rao. And because you have to invest in yourself, so you have to buy one share, because that's about tomorrow. 30 years ago, well, 40 years ago now, maybe 45 years ago, somebody as a gift gave our son 6 shares of Exxon stock. Worked out really well.
Nice.
So you've got to just buy one share, and then that changes your perception of tomorrow. You can't get stuck in today. Investing is about tomorrow, so you have to first believe that there will be a tomorrow.
Right on. That's a good statement right there. Ace Spade says, ask your guest if he would buy a boat. Random question. Would you buy a boat?
I was spot on the water. I don't know, because a small one, perhaps, I travel to different spots a lot. Maybe a small one, not a bigger one, because I don't want to do that whole crew thing. I know people who have done that. No, I wouldn't, and I get seasick. That's actually the reason I get seasick. Now that I think about it, every time I've been on a boat, I get sick. So that's probably
okay. So probably we'll give that as a no.
It's just a question, but the water for them is probably meditative. So that's probably
maybe that's true.
How they release themselves.
Brewmaster Monk says we should start daily planners so our FBI profilers have to really break a sweat. I think still it would be hilarious to mail them farts. Okay, Brewmaster.
You got to do it. You got to do a daily planner. if you want to observe your own behavior and make corrections
Yeah.
on your behavior, the only way to do it is to have to be very rigid in that practice. So if you
Yeah.
want, if there's a behavior, your wife or your significant other, whoever it is really not going to be able to change that, right?
That's true.
All they can do is just tell you that this is irking them. But the problem is, after a while, what irked them is now just going to become, well, he does that, right? But if you genuinely want to correct the behavior, you have to observe it, and you have to observe it in real time to make those self corrections.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Adam, I mean, this we've gone way over my normal time, but it's just like we couldn't stop it because these conversations were solid. I'm going to give you the camera, just to let just talk to the people that are still hanging out, and then of course this is going to go on my podcast. Tell people where to follow you. Tell people what you're doing, and
You do all the follow me type of stuff. I don't really care about that. It doesn't really mean that much. Oh, look, I've got the camera to myself. I feel kind of lonely now. Can you come back? Would that be all
I
right?
can come back. Yeah. I'm here. Don't worry.
Also, so I know all the things. So, don't worry. I don't care about following. Who cares about that stuff?
I do, because I think you have a lot to offer people.
I do these periscopes. I've done 41 of them. And I put them on YouTube just so I have an archive of them, just because it's a convenient archive. It doesn't take up too much space. They're kind of accessible. Yeah.
It's in the description down below if you'd like to check them out, his YouTube channel.
But that's just an archive for me. And lately, because I can do it on my phone, I give them kind of cool graphics lately, right? So
that's cool.
Yeah. But so when I do these periscopes, I've done 41 of them. The investor series, I've done 12 of them now. The social ones, I've done a bunch. The fitness ones, because fitness is important. You always have to think about tomorrow. And what your health is going to be when you're 80, 90. And I think of periscopes as perishable. I like that. Nothing I'm saying is Aristotle. Forget about reading me, man. I suck.
We all do.
Read Machiavelli, read Plato, read Hobbes, read Locke. Just these people are smarter than me. I've had Paul Gottfried on. They're correcting me about Hobbes. I love it. They're better than me. I just read the classics. Don't my interpretation of them is usually going to be wrong. So just read the classics. And Twitter is perishable and social media is perishable. So I don't care.
Right on. Well, last super chat is kind of perfect. Just got to add, I loved this episode. I'm going to second that. And what I don't love is the Postal Service is 2 days late getting me my Crigler coffee. I'm so sorry. That sucks, Lasagna. I apologize for that. Although I had nothing to do with it. But do enjoy the coffee when you get it. Adam, thank you for joining me. What a fun episode.
That was a lot of fun, right? Let me see
do me a favor. Turn your music back on and let's.
That's what I'm about to do. So we're going to hear Kadama Kanama now.
Yeah. Oh, good.
And so Hare Krishna is part of his practice. So this is part of Bhakti practice, and everybody has their own Maha Mantra. So for some people, it's the Hanuman Chalisa, which is 40 lines of a poem. And you know what we'll listen to? We'll listen to the Medicine Healing Buddha. So I'm going to progress it a little bit, and you're going to like this. I'm going to put it up here because it's a lot more musical.
Thank you for tuning in, everybody. I will be back tomorrow at 6:30 here in Adam Cast IRL.
I'll stay here. Click the button. I'll stay with you.
What's up?
Click the button and I'll stay with you. Go.
Click the what?
When you click leave, right? And I'll stay with you for a second.
Oh yeah. No, we're still gonna talk, but I just gonna end the stream. You guys all have a great night, and I'll see y'all next time on Adam Cast.